speed is the ultimate skill for anybody to have.
It's not really about the treadmill. Yeah, we built this spaceship, but at the end of the day, this is just a tool. The protocols were the crown jewels.
Our job is to make them a better moving athlete.
Your brain is a governor. Survival is the brain's primary function. Your physical body is capable of so much more than your brain wants to allow it to do.
You have two options. You either do it or you don't.
You can override the brain's speed limit.
What's up, Power Project family? Before we get into this podcast with Z-Treadz, the creators of the world's first high-performance treadmill. And when I say high-performance, the guy who created this thing was an aerospace engineer. And then he decided to create the spaceship of treadmills. I want to tell you guys about a workout we did with them that's on the second channel. So after you finish this podcast, go on and check out the workout we did with them. And the last thing I want to say is this. If you're a professional team, if you're a college team, if you're a high school gym that wants to level up the way that your athletes train and build speed, whoo, this is what you want to get your hands on, okay? Let's get into the show.
All right, Ubrzati guys, yes. Z-Treadmill guys.
Z-Treadmill.
The most expensive treadmill on earth?
Yeah.
That's a rumor.
I don't think that's true.
Really? That's not true. No, definitely not true.
How? What could be better? Or what could
We didn't
be more
say better.
expensive?
We said more expensive.
Yeah, that's right.
True.
I think there are some that cost more.
We're going to get into a lot of cool stuff. We're going to talk about how to get fast. We're going to talk about how to get your brain, your central nervous system wrapped around getting faster. But Tim, could you maybe just kind of kick some of this off and tell us how this idea of this treadmill got started? Hopefully some of the people have seen the Z treadmill on my Instagram, but if they haven't heard it before, let's give them the rundown of how this thing got started.
Yeah, I think for starters,
Big story.
you know, the biggest takeaway is it's not really about the treadmill. We view the tread as we built a spaceship, right? You know, if you're going to do it right. But at the end of the day, this is just a tool. It's just a device. I say we're not in the business of selling treadmills. In fact, we turn down facilities that just want the tread.
Really?
Because we're in this for Ubrzati. All right, so for us, it's the system. It's what do we do with a treadmill. It's Beau's life's work, I like to say, as the the developer of the protocols.
Yeah, you guys are like brothers on this. You guys are tight.
Well, and there's there's more than just us two, right? Dario is also a partner. It's the Holy Trinity. And then you have our staff. Without all of it, none of it exists. Ubrzati was founded based on, what I did with Dario in the garage, right? We played some baseball together, and I started training with him and took my daughter to run with Dario in the garage. And high performance treadmills are something that affected his life when he was in college, transformed him. So I saw what, the impact it had on my daughter, and you're talking instantaneous results, right? And we can get into the science behind what is the essence of Ubrzati. So I felt what it did to me. Few sessions, you feel light, you feel explosive. Okay, what is the explanation for this? From my standpoint, I needed to understand that more. And having just sold an aerospace engineering company where I was in the world of fly-by-wire flight controls and just, now pseudo-retirement, I said, you know what, we got to get this out of the garage and go impact the community. What you're doing here needs to get out of the garage. And, he already had a relationship with Beau. They were in this world of high-performance treadmills, and Beau has an extensive history in developing these protocols. And he can talk to you more about that lineage. Very interesting, right? So he's like, I said, here's what we're going to do. And my ode to Dario, who is the Croatian sensation. He's full-blooded Croatian. You have to meet him. I mean, if we were going to redo this, he wanted to be here with us today. We're missing him already.
Does he have an Instagram we can pull up or something?
No Instagram. It's all
he's laying low.
Yeah, it's all Ubrzati.
I like it.
Okay.
We are Ubrzati, I guess is the best way to put it. But I came up with Ubrzati. It is Croatian for speed and acceleration. And I drew the logo, hand sketched the logo that you see on a napkin, gave it to Dario to give to his wife, who drew the logo. She's a graphic designer. She created the logo. So this is roots family. That is how Ubrzati was born. We need all three of us together, contributing what we are going to contribute to bring this out into the world, and that's what exists today. Now, the evolution of the Z-Tread is just a vehicle to deploy Ubrzati. I knew that the protocols were the crown jewels, but it needed to be automated. So that's where I applied my background and relationships with building this into a software system that controls a treadmill. And this has evolved into the ability to take measure an athlete's speed with ground-based timing, these laser timing systems that now have APIs that we automatically connect to the cloud that is connected to our system, and speed becomes the input for programming the protocols. So now every set at every incline for every specific duration that is hitting your 6 to 8 second anaerobic energy system at a level that is consistently pushing the limit of what your brain believes to be how safe you can move.
I gotta call a timeout here. Beau, did you think that a treadmill would be something that could work with your background before you knew about Tim, and maybe maybe there was a time before you knew about treadmills? Because most people will have conjecture against the treadmill. It's not the same. It's pushing your foot back, and people listening like, I don't have access to this nice treadmill and so on. But we'll get into a lot of things that the people at home can do to have great benefit. But were you skeptical in the beginning about the usage of treadmills, or what were your thoughts?
Well, okay, well, you got to go back to it goes back to the beginning, right? The history is, so we all immerse ourselves in what we do.
We got to get you a little closer to the
So
microphone.
it goes back. So I had never been exposed to the treads until I got to Alaska. So that's kind of like the start of it, right? So I get up to graduate college, move up to Alaska just for adventure, really. Start working. I had a degree in health and human performance. Start working in a little, athletic club.
Not going to really do a lot of working out outside in Alaska.
No,
probably.
that's the whole essence, right? So the cool thing about it is I start training a hockey player at this athletic club for performance and for speed. And the father approaches me. He's like, "Hey, I've got a friend of mine who has told me about this treadmill system, and they want to start it and start a company to start training hockey players off the ice. What hockey players call dry land, and part of that system was a high performance treadmill. And so in college, you study things, but you don't you learn X's and O's, reps and sets, physiology, anatomy, that kind of stuff. But you never really apply it. And so I get up to Alaska and I meet a guy by the name of Stevie McSwain, who was the first pro hockey player to come out of Alaska. And he has this idea about a company who builds a high-speed, high-performance hockey treadmill, but on the other side of it, they build a high-performance treadmill built by a guy by the name of John Frappier. And so I helped start a company called Acceleration Alaska. I don't think it doesn't exist anymore, right? But the essence of it was this high-performance treadmill. And so I began to immerse myself in the system, and I go down to North Dakota, which is where everything that you see today and Ubrzati, it all has like a beginning, and it was with a guy by the name.
Why are you in areas that are so cold?
Well, here's the thing, right? Just it's one of these things where it was like, why the hell did you go to Alaska? And the cool thing about it is, I don't have an answer for that. I just wanted to go and see and do things, right?
As an explorer.
Yeah.
Really, the hunting and the fishing.
Yeah, the hunting and the fishing was a big part of it, right? So I was like, okay, why'd you go? I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense.
So it's one of those stories that you have, it just got married. We had a 1996 F-150 that I'd bought for my father, and literally just packed everything we could in the back of the truck and literally drove up to Alaska. No house, no family, no friends, no job, right? Looking
Does
back,
your wife like hunting and fishing?
At the time she did. It was an ex-wife, right? But at the time, she was a big hunter and fisherman. Grew up on a ranch in New Mexico.
Okay.
So it was like, yeah, let's just go up. I don't even have a rhyme or reason. So long story short, we drive all the way up to Alaska, and just like any story, right? I happened to start training a little hockey player whose father had a friend who had this idea of opening a facility to train hockey players dry land. And lo and behold, the performance treadmill was there. And so, long story short, I got to work with John Frappier on a large scale level. Got to meet him a lot, got to go down to North Dakota, learn from him. He's my mentor, as Tim says. Everybody has a mentor, right? So this gentleman by the name of John Frappier becomes my mentor and teaches me about, speed development on these treadmills. And once again, I immerse myself into running on these treadmills, had no prior knowledge to it. You didn't learn about it at school, nothing like that. And lo and behold, I become the athlete at 23 that I really was trying to be at 18, 19, 20, and 21. And so
we wish we had this when we were kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What makes the treadmill unique? Like, what makes it optimal to be able to produce, not even your treadmills, let's say, just treadmills in general, if they can buy into some of the information that you guys are collecting with the style of training that you're doing, why would a treadmill be a little bit, maybe even superior in some ways to flatland?
Goes back. You want to?
I'll let I call him the sensei, right? Oh. I respect his history and related to all of this. And in the last 7 years, as with anything, the way I operate is, I take everything as a hypothesis. This is new territory for me. I want to experience it myself. I want to challenge every bit of it, and whatever shakes out, shakes out. I don't create. There's no identity bias. There's no, I got to hold on to this thought or philosophy. I go in it and I just try to immerse myself in what people know today and what can I learn along the way. So, Beau is going to have his theories on, what it is, why it works. I have theories, and there's a lot of alignment there, but, he can probably best answer it, and then mine should be looked at as non-expert, just based on what I believe, based on what I've seen, what I've felt, and what I think I know.
Gotcha.
Well, it goes back to you immerse yourself into it. And so I will give so here's what happened and why I decided to do what I decided to do. And I can probably answer it better that way. Is so in college, I got to college by way of baseball. So I went from northern New Mexico to Indiana to a little school to play baseball. Well, by the time I got to the spring season, I got cut. And it just wrecked me mentally more than anything, right? Confidence-wise, right? I was like, I thought I was the shit, right? But when you get to college, what you don't understand is everybody's good, right? And I just wasn't prepared. And so I told myself, okay, how can I learn to teach athletes or to teach kids who are like me from little towns, right, to become faster and to be a better athlete, right? Well, when I got to Alaska, I found that answer through Frappier. And so I start immersing myself in running the system, right, or running the Frappier method, and holy shit, lo and behold, right, I become the athlete that I needed to be at 18 and 19 years old to be able to be effective as an athlete when I got to college. And so goes back to it enhanced my ability so much, so fast, that I knew there was something to it. And so then you go back down and you start learning from Frappier, and he's teaching you, and I don't think we need to get too deep in the science of, the physiology of what speed is and what speed is and how you can become faster on a performance treadmill, right? But from my standpoint, it changed me mentally, and it motivated me, and it became kind of like a passion of mine, right? To be like, holy shit, if I can become this athlete and teach myself, then I know there's a way and a system that we can deploy to train athletes just like me who don't have a Mark Bell or don't have me or don't have all these high-end trainers to teach them how to be stronger or faster. So the whole point was, my passion was, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can from John Frappier, and then I'm going to apply it, okay, to my system at that time up at Acceleration Alaska. And lo and behold, I start doing all this cool stuff with hockey players. And then that's where really the essence of Ubrzati begins. Right? It wasn't Ubrzati. It was, at first it was, Frappier, what I learned from Frappier. Then it turned into Beau Chavez Performance, and then Beau Chavez Performance turned into Ubrzati. right? And then that's where Tim's like, man, there's something to these protocols, as he calls them, the crown jewels, right? For me, it was literally, I sat down over probably a 2-year period and mapped out and wrote a 500-page manual by hand and typed it out, right, with Excel and all this. And Tim's like, we have to automate this, right? Because it was like, hey, I want the system. All right, how do I get this system? How do I become faster? All right, call Beau, right? And Beau's going to come out and he's going to hand you a 500-page handwritten, copyrighted manual of an 8-week periodized approach on how to use a high-performance treadmill, right? And then that's when Tim comes into play.
Yeah, and you're talking, multiple levels of 8 weeks of speed development periodization. So you can imagine how cumbersome that was, right? It even if I think about it now, I say, okay, mechanical flight controls versus what I did in a past life, which was verify fly-by-wire flight controls. It's the automation and the use of computers and algorithms to control an aircraft, or in this case, control the learning curve of an athlete.
There's like 70,000 planes in the air or something like that, I heard, at the same time.
And interestingly, I sold my company and got out of the business right before the 737 MAX. So we worked on almost every aircraft up until the 737 MAX, which, if you go Google that, you'll see they had quite a few issues with their fly-by-wire flight control. But
Because you left.
Man, I'm not saying. I'm just saying I got out maybe at the right time.
We just have to make athletes fast. Tim had to keep airplanes from falling out of the sky. There's a big difference, right?
And I'd say even more importantly, a transition that led to the opportunity to work with these guys and do what we do today. It's a very mission-driven passion project. Like
Absolutely.
The ability to impact the youth athletes is something in terms of motivation to do what you do. And like I tell the staff, you can challenge what I'm about to tell you. Go search the globe and tell me someone that is doing what we're doing today. Go find it. I haven't seen it. Look at the Z-Tread. Look at Ubrzati. Look at the impact that you have on these athletes every day as coaches, as mentors.
And Seema, I know that you had, like, the first time that you ever went on it, it seemed like you were pretty amazed, and you were like, man, that input. And that's the exact word I used the first time I ever used it, the first time you took me through it. And I even had an injury, but I was like, man, that input just felt so different. It's hard to like put it into words, but it felt like really clean input without any sort of junk and without anything that was going to be really difficult for me to recover from, is kind of what I was feeling.
Is that your first video there?
This is
That's the first time we.
That's
ever
first
did
time you got it?
That's first. That's not me. That's our friend Terrell. But this is the first time we used the treadmill. At least me and
So
Terrell.
the difference from what I saw with you today, Mark, versus that is light years ahead of. I mean, but that's the thing, right? Do I think you could have done that, on the turf or up a hill or whatever? I don't think you could have. I think when you say the input and you feel the input and you see the input and someone's there telling you about the input, it just happens so much faster.
I have a question, and then I have another question after this. But we did some inclines today, and we'll definitely go into how we went about what we did today with you guys. But because people will see some of the incline stuff that we did. We'll probably have a companion video for this. So if you guys want to see that footage of what we did on the Z-Tread, that'll be attached, and maybe we'll be able to have some video that pops up during the podcast. But why would an incline on this be different from an incline on a hill? Like, why would it be a potentially better input than just going and doing hill sprints?
This is how I always answer it, because I got that question a lot. Early on, when we would go to these big coaches shows, right? Inevitably, old school coach would be like, "We just go outside and fucking run up a hill." Yeah, you could. Like fucking Walter Payton did it. This guy, Barry Sanders did it. This guy did it. I mean, Jerry Rice did it. Of course they did it. Okay, but it goes back to what I told you: is we're trying to move the needle for everybody. Not everybody can be Walter Payton. Not everybody can be, as Tim says, what's best for the athlete. And I told you guys this today. How can we shift slow to moderately fast, moderately to fast, and then fast to the fastest? Okay, yeah, you can go up outside. You can do all the the speed drills.
A
everything
slow
we wanna do.
person can't get better, can't get faster unless they touch upon the stuff that's a little bit tough, right? They need to find
Exactly. They got to find that other gear that we always talk about. But going back to
have very specific theories
Tim
on
does.
this
and the
already.
treadmill allows you to dial that in. I mean,
Dial
I've
it
seen it
in.
myself with strength, and I've seen it myself with helping athletes become more explosive through doing box squats and different things. They just would not be able to. It's not that they couldn't get it; they could get it, but they weren't able to actually express it.
Exactly.
Until they were able to feel it in some way. So you're like,
that's
how do
the
I
key.
get this person to feel this? Right. And then you're like, maybe I'll just have them jump. I would have people jump up on a box and I would say, how did that feel to you? What did you feel you had to do? And they're like, I don't know. I had to jump up and then I had to bring my feet under me quickly. It's like, yeah, whatever the heck that is or whatever the heck that feels like. Yeah. I want you to do that when you do this squat. You're gonna go down and you're gonna sit for half a second, and then I want you to boom, explode up. That took them a while to understand.
That's the way the industry is going now. I mean, we can, I don't think we want to get into VBT, velocity-based training, but that's what we're talking about. Okay, is how fast. I mean, when you say, okay, I need you to move that bar this fast, all right, until you know how fast that is or you feel how fast that is, they're not going to move it. But when you can see it and you're standing there, okay, I want you to hit it. It's either red or it's green. Green means you're good. Okay, go down to a box squat, come up, red. Okay, in your mind, you're like, oh, fuck, I thought that was fast. Well, no, it's not. Okay, I need more. Okay, and you go down, you go up, ding, green. Right? It's that kinesthetic awareness and immediate feedback that we need. So, to answer your question, because we're going down some rabbit holes, which is cool. I love it. Right? But go back to running up a hill.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple things, and Tim's going to answer it different than I do, but I'm going to answer it from what I've heard for the past 30 years, right? Is I'll just run up a hill, right? It's just the same. It's okay. Yeah. Run. I always say this, nobody runs uphill wrong. Okay. When you're running uphill, you have to have a high knee drive. You have to have a dorsal flexed foot. You have to kind of lean into it, right? And your mechanics are fairly solid. They're good, okay? But then you go back, okay, to what is speed? Stride length, stride frequency. So if I say, okay, I always tell this to the coach, line up your 10 best guys at the bottom of that hill. We're going to sprint up this, and find a 25% grade hill, okay? That's the hill we need. Not easy to find. Not easy to find, wherever it may be. Anyway, I want you to line up your 10 best guys, your hard charging guys, your strong guys, your fast guys. Let's line them up, and we're going to do 10 sprints up that hill. Okay, sprint up that hill, walk back down. If you're truly trying to train speed, okay, you have to have that frequency and you have to have a specific length. Those two together, okay, enhance your speed. Okay, so when you go up that hill, right, the first 4 or 5 may be really good, okay? 7, 8, not so much. 9, 10, all right, you're fucking struggling now, right? By 10, okay, what happens? Frequency goes down, length goes down. Okay, what are the two factors of speed? Length and frequency. As soon as those go down, you're done. With the tread, if I tell you I need 5 reps or 5 sets, okay, and as hard as you can for 6 seconds, okay, you have 2 options. You either do it or you don't. And you saw it today. It's that other gear I talk about. Okay, I want you to run 25% incline, 10 miles an hour, 6 seconds as hard as you can. Go, right? Most good athletes are going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, all you do is adjust the speed. Because I may have a guy that's a super fast guy. He can do 25%, 11 miles an hour. Okay, so today's a perfect example based on what we saw outside, right? You're 25% incline at 11 miles an hour, okay, 11.7, whatever it is. Do it as hard as you can for, say 5 reps. Perfect. You're going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, if I take you outside, as soon as you start getting tired, what do? You fatigue, you get tired. First thing that goes down is your frequency. Second thing, all right, comes length. After that, now you become slight, and then it becomes a conditioning drill, not a speed drill. Does that make sense?
And that's also for some people, because I think some people might hear you say 6 seconds. They're like, why so short? Right? So can you just kind of basically
It's easy.
explain that?
So I always say this. What is an average play in football? 6 seconds.
Okay.
What is an average play in volleyball? 6 seconds. Okay. What is an average play in pick a sport?
Soccer. Well, that's actually.
Well, but here's the thing about soccer, right? Is and we can argue soccer a little bit, right? You get the ball right, you kick the ball right, you
Then you're
sprint as hard as you can, and then you're chilling.
Yeah.
But when you get that ball, okay, or you have to go for you have to go chase the ball, it's as hard as you possibly can. Burst for how long? 6 seconds.
That's true. That's
and
very
you
true.
do it over and over and over and over and over and over again for a total of 11 minutes in a 4-quarter game.
And a lot of what the protocols do too is increase speed capacity.
Yep.
right? That upper limit, that upper threshold.
So would you say that there's like almost like a bad input? Would you say, like if you're on a regular hill and you're you're doing these 7, 8, 9, 10 sets, and you have this intent of speed, but you're losing some of the intent of what you're trying to do because you only had 3 or 4 sets that were moving as fast as you were talking about.
I think as soon
the
as
treadmill has that turnover.
As soon as you lose intent, you lose the capacity for speed. Right? Then it becomes a conditioning drill. I'm not saying it's
that's
bad.
not necessarily bad.
That's
Okay,
not bad. Yeah, you're going to get conditioned. It's just different, right? It's like doing gassers or 40s in football. That's great. Is it making you faster? No, it's your conditioning. Well, right? But go ahead.
The ability to recover between max intensity
There's
is
so much we can go
using your aerobic system to recover. Right? So there's conditioning moving slow, and then there's conditioning while moving fast and recovering between moving fast.
You felt that today.
Yes.
Remember you were asking me?
So they're two totally different approaches. And this is, even Tony Holler, who's going to be at Outside the Box, we've had calls where, we like to challenge what we think we know. And we had him review and just spend time with us and go through the protocols and get his input on, concepts like burning the steak and how would this apply to sprint-based football and things he's having tremendous success with that are contentious within the football world, which we love to live there. That's the whole point of Outside the Box. Challenge what you think you know. And if it shakes out and it holds water, you might be onto something. So if you go back to difference between hill sprint and what we do, knowing that incline cleans up the mechanics and it has all of its benefits of just why you run on incline.
Incline is key.
Okay. My belief and a lot of what I prescribe to and why I'm behind it the way I am is if I ask you a question, if you had to use one word to describe what the brain's primary function is for the human, what is it? One word.
Safe.
Okay. Keep you safe.
Trust.
That's more than one.
Movement.
For what purpose?
Communicate.
Keep thinking. What is the brain's primary function?
I guess survival. I don't know.
Survival.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
So survival is the brain's primary function. Now, what is one of the things the brain is going to do to keep you alive if it thinks you are getting beyond where you are capable of being safe and stay alive? It's going to limit you, right?
Governor.
Your brain is a governor. So, my thought is the brain has a safety limit. And this is where, one of my favorite analogies is the jar of fleas. Okay. They take a jar and they fill it with fleas, and instantly these fleas are physically capable of jumping well outside of the jar. They are just jumping all over the place, right? What do? They put a lid on the jar. They wait some period of time. They come back. They take the lid off the jar. How high do they jump?
They don't leave.
Nobody's jumping outside of the jar. So if you go back and you say, are you physically capable of this level of a depth jump? Physically, you might be. You might not be. You need physical attributes to be able to do explosive things. We all know that. That's why the tread doesn't replace anything. It enhances everything, right? So if you can train your brain to believe, truly believe, you can't trick your brain. Your brain knows, right? You have to train your brain to say, this is my new level of safety. This is my new speed limit. And now the physical capability that you're continuing to build, right? It's not like everything lives in isolation. This stuff is all happening. Your physical body is capable of so much more than your brain wants to allow it to do. And this doesn't just apply to physical activity. Think about how good you feel when you run a new top speed. How good did it feel when we had you on the lasers and you were trying to hit 18 and then you exceeded 18?
Yeah.
That endorphin rush, that dopamine rush, this gets into, I'm fascinated by skill development, right? And the brain's function, right? There's the basal ganglia, right? And the cerebellum and the role, like the motor cortex is what moves, but the basal ganglia is what modulates. This is what gives you that vigorous, that burst, you have the direct pathways and the indirect pathways. The go is the direct, the no-go is the indirect. And when those are synced up and modulated with optimal efficiency, now you get smooth. Now you take conscious thought and conscious motor function like you were trying to do in the warm-up. How awkward did you feel in the warm-up today? That's conscious thought on a new skill, new coordination that will convert to unconscious muscle memory. Yeah. That is the goal. So we're training the brain. We're developing this capability of the basal ganglia and the cerebellum. Cerebellum is fine tuning. Now it's like, this is the feedback loop, right? Every little, when you're sprinting at full speed and you're on that tread and you're getting that interaction from the coach that's cueing you, you've got the mirror for that kinesthetic awareness of the feel versus real.
Everybody understands what kinesthetic awareness is. It's the body's ability to feel and see at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. Which is really hard to duplicate on dry land. I don't want to break your concentration, but that's what kinesthetic is: hearing and seeing and feeling at the same time. And you repeat it over and over and over and over, right? Your body picks it up a lot quicker.
But
moves the needle
this
faster.
So this is the concept. When you think about skill development, if you had the ability, and this is why I call the Z-Tread a time machine, if you have the ability to concisely and precisely control how the athlete moves, this is moving better, faster. It is the motto and the mission of Ubrzati. It is everything that we do. And the other aspect of this is you have to buy into not just the neural aspect and the CNS that everybody talks about. It's this concept of the extracellular matrix, right? The ECM, and how that is contributing to elastic and reflexive and dispersing forces laterally throughout the fibers so that the efficiency of the movement is now optimized, right? Yeah. So, these are things, and, I recently had, or I should say we recently had a call with someone that I've wanted to talk to for years, and I've always put at the top of the list for outside the box. I always give Beau a list. This is who we want to be there. And he has, people he wants to be there, and we get the staff's input, like, who do you want to be at outside the box? Who is going to stretch brains? Who thinks like we do?
Challenge the norm.
Who thinks very differently than we do? And one of those people was Eugene Bleecker. Coming in baseball, softball background, he was someone that I was very interested to talk to. We were very fortunate to get on a call with him. One of his partners, Jose Rio, reached out to me, really interested in the treadmill, out of the blue. I said, let's have a call. So we set up a call. Calls me at like 10 o'clock at night. We had to cut that call off. I said, look, we could probably talk all night. Let's get some sleep, right? You can just tell when like-minded people that are saying, their past history and the success that he's had in doing what he's been doing and, why we're doing what we're doing, a lot of synergy instantly. So he's like, I'm setting up, we're going to pull in Eugene. Eugene's he's the head of 108 Performance. Shout out to 108. Amazing things. I mean, these guys, they train Paul Skeens. So, but he is a scientist, experimenter, challenge everything, extremely articulate, very knowledgeable on human anatomy and how things work. And this concept of ECM is something that is clearly central to everything behind the uniqueness of his training. So we end up, it's set up for 30 minutes. Over 2 hours later, we're still just rapping, right? And I mean, it's like, these are people that need to be together, because if these forces align, things happen that could never happen in isolation. And we're all about collaboration toward evolution. So, just really fascinated by the things that he's doing. Very targeted at baseball, softball. I believe that what they're doing, things that we incorporate as well.
This kind of stuff
apply to every
kind of stuff we're seeing
sport.
Them do in the gym on some of these videos. just looks like fun. And I think, something I've been trying to communicate for a while, but just didn't have the right words and didn't really understand exactly what I was searching for. But what I've been searching for the whole time is I've always knew that there were some holes in strength training. I love strength training. I love powerlifting. I love bodybuilding. Sure. Bodybuilding and powerlifting, I think there's aspects of it that you can keep forever. Like there's really no reason why you can't go to the gym and get a good pump and do your 3 sets of 10 and so forth and do that until the day you die. I think it's awesome. But I always felt like there's something missing. And what I didn't understand was missing is an actual skill set. Now, I'm not going to discredit bodybuilding or discredit powerlifting and say that there's no skill set to it. But sure, there's some skill.
There's a definite skill set. There's a skill set to everything.
Yeah, there's a skill set to it, but Absolutely. You're not really learning something that's a skill that really carries over all that much into a lot of other things that you might be doing. Now, Correct. Powerlifting, you can make the case for, it's tapping into the nervous system and you are going heavier and you got bone density and you have things that are going to, so I get it, but it's not the same as, my dad called me the other day. He had a knee surgery recently and he doesn't have very good range of motion in his knee. And he's like, I went to the gym the other day and I did some leg press. I'm like, great, that's awesome. But I was like, let's get you some other exercises that help to build a skill, because he's 77 or 78. And so let's talk about step ups and let's talk about, you hear the word functional all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's not so much about it just being necessarily functional, but it's about it being like a skill. Like, okay, stepping up, you have to step up, you have to step down. That's in your day to day. You have to get in and out of the car. You have to figure out a way if you fall and you're in your 70s. Like a lot of people get hurt. Some people have situations that are even worse than that. You have to figure out ways to get up. You have to learn even just how to fall, right? And they're all skill-based things rather than just focusing on the curls and the bench pressing and so on. You're actually trying to develop skill sets. Yeah. And a lot of what you showed us, a lot of the ground-based work that we did today, the drills and so forth that we did, I would just kind of call them track drills. Yeah.
That's what they're a lot of them are based towards.
There's a
track.
lot of skill in there. And even when you're doing like, this side to side motion of you're, stretching the groin and then you're, turning around and all that kind of stuff.
Well, think about that for your father, right?
Right.
Okay. Normally, right. What is normal PT, right? Everything is just step up, step down, sit up,
right.
Squat, stand, right? Well, in daily life, you have to move sideways, right? Mm-hmm. So what if you just go sideways, then have them turn backwards and have them turn the other way and go sideways, and you get different planes of motion in there. That is a skill.
Walk sideways.
Walk backwards. I mean, one thing too is we didn't even hit it today. It was going backwards on the tread.
Retro.
What we call retro.
Our favorites.
And I learned about that a long time ago. And when I learned about it, I was like, man, there's something to this, right? Because I had my athletes start going backwards on the tread, fast, uphill.
High speed retro.
Try it. Right. And people say, well, it's the same. All it is just the opposite.
Like Tim's devious smile.
Yeah, man. Just try it. Just
next
step
session,
on and just
session.
turn around and go backwards and walk backwards and see what happens for most people. Even good athletes have a really hard time coordinating the pattern of going backwards.
And when you get good, you're jumping on, right? So you kind of build up. You're wiring everything to be able to move in a way that's just not used to.
It's a central nervous system and it's a wiring system within the brain, right? It goes back to all the things we're talking about. Going backwards, right, actually will facilitate you being a better athlete moving forward. Okay, and then we even get into it today, and I've told you to do some what we call 360s, going sideways backwards on the treadmill, right? The reason it goes back to necessity is going sideways on the treadmill. Like, well, why would you do that, right? It doesn't make any sense. But when you break it down physiologically, right? And the reason I started doing it was for hockey players, because the long story short was I had a lot of pro hockey players up in Alaska, and it was a big, huge hockey treadmill, and the pro guys would get on there and it would ruin their blades on the hockey treadmill.
Is he powering the treadmill with his lateral?
It's movement.
That's the speed?
Yeah. So that's WEC, right? WEC is adding in,
Oh, okay.
But the cool thing about it, right, is, the studies that we have done on lateral and retro movement, right, or what we call 360s, is very substantial, right, for hip development. Okay. Lateral medial stability increases linear mobility.
And also to add into that, there have been studies done on multidirectional athletes that they tend to have more bone density in their lower legs than athletes who are just straight ahead athletes. So
of course, it goes back to skill development, right? What's the big problem with? I don't think we really need to get in this, right? But kids being a skilled athlete from 5 years old to, the time they get burnt out or they quit, right? If you play one specific sport over and over again, and you don't allow the athlete to experience and move in different ways in different sports, right? Technically, from the research, basically you're going to end up getting hurt somewhere in some way or burnt out.
I want to kind of ask you guys a question that's maybe a little different. Is like, so you guys have thousands of hours probably at this point. You guys have seen like hundreds of thousands of.
I've seen everything.
You've seen like.
I've seen everything.
Nobody's seen everything. Come on.
You've seen a lot.
Here's what I tell people though: is
You're old, but you're not that old.
I've seen so much, right? But the things that I've done wrong over the past, I'm sure you're attest to this too, right?
Hey, Mark, cut him off.
I've never done anything wrong.
You've never done anything wrong, right? But everything I've done wrong using a high performance treadmill, right, is what's made it so effective and so good now.
Right. But you've probably seen everything from like a 5-year-old to like an 85-year-old. You guys have worked with so many different people. And I guess sometimes the question is, if someone says, okay, hey man, you got to get strong. And then what pops into my head is like, this is actually kind of a complicated conversation to have with like a 15-year-old kid that you're trying to get strong for football or something, right? What do we mean by strong? Strong for what? And strong in what way? So fast, right? You guys are talking about getting fast. Fast for what and fast in what way?
Okay. So one of the things that's essential for Ubrzati is really understanding who we are and what we do, right? You have to know what is your essence. And our essence is speed, power, agility for sports performance. We only ever ask one question: what is best for the athlete? And we continually challenge that in a way that is healthy and productive.
So that is taking into account the athlete. Because I know that you guys will train
100%.
a lot of people on a treadmill in a particular workout, but still there's still thought being thought about in terms of what are most of the athletes lumped, they put together? Or is it like baseball people going,
we'll tailor.
football people going? Okay.
Yeah. So we have mechanisms to tailor. We do some sport specific where we bring in experts. Right now we're running elite football, right? So we've got a guy that was several years in the NFL, working with Dylan, who's been with us from the beginning. And we marry all of their life experience into the programming for football athletes. And it's a 3-day program, right? So day one is going to be speed, max velocity, along with, say, max strength upper body. The only thing we never do, we never lift heavy lower and then sprint.
Speed is always first.
Sprint
always
has to be full health, always achieving what we like to say the 10Z, 102%. Everybody says 1% better. I say 1 plus 1% is Z%, 2%. Okay. So this is the next level. If you look at the guys that are training these athletes for combine prep, right? I've had conversations with several of what are the top guys that do this in the country. And I say, look, if you have 4 to 6 weeks, how much stronger are you going to get them?
Yeah.
How much tendon stiffness are you going to get them? They're elite, right? These guys are strong. They're springy. You're going to teach them technique. And the difference maker that you can make is you can override the brain speed limit to say there are new levels of how fast the brain will allow these bodies that are capable of so much more than the brain is allowing them to do to achieve. And we can do that in 1 session, 2 session, 3 session. That happens almost instantly. The other aspect of overriding the brain is triggering the fight or flight mechanism. Now, while the ECM and the reflexive has everything to do, especially at max velocity, the ability to apply that force in a in a way that I totally lost my train of thought. Okay.
Just think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just part of the reason I asked that question is just because I'm thinking like, speed is speed, and obviously the sport does matter. Like if you're playing soccer, and there's some different, depending on the position you play in soccer, and we get into all these things. There's agility and all other things, right? But like just trying to get that nervous system to fire is what you guys are mainly after.
Tim,
right?
yeah, that's what it is. Tim will say we're sport agnostic, and so when we talk about, I think you're talking about sport specificity. Okay, are you a softball player? Do we train all softball players one way? Then we baseball players one way, football players in one way, and volleyball players one way, right? To me, and I've said this forever, is you have to be fast and powerful and agile in any sport. It doesn't matter what it is. It goes back to central nervous system development. If we can teach the brain to fire the muscles at a higher rate of force, it doesn't matter what sport you play. If you want to get specific, okay, most of the time these kids are doing so much, okay, they're hitting, right? They're throwing, that's specific. Our job is to make them a better moving athlete. If we make them a better moving athlete and they are faster, then their performance is going to be better. And if their performance is better as an athlete, then their skill gets better. Everybody has it ass backwards. Okay, we're going to go to a throwing coach and we're going to go to a hitting coach. And that's all we're going to do to make you a better athlete. That's in people's mind. It's like, okay, I'm going to buy you a $700 baseball bat, right? Because that's going to make you a better hitter. If you don't know how to move that bat with efficiency and velocity, right, by teaching the central nervous system to fire properly in the proper sequence, that bat ain't going to make you any better. It's just not. Okay. Does that answer the question in a way? All right. If I want to train somebody to squat 500 pounds, am I going to get them under the bar and have them squat 500 pounds? Okay, until they can squat 500 pounds, there's a way and a progression to do it, right? That's the same thing with speed. But for us, speed is the ultimate skill for anybody to have. If you're fast and you're able to move with efficiency, you're going to be stronger in the weight room. And if you become stronger in the weight room because your central nervous system is firing better, you're going to be stronger and faster on the field, period.
I want to give people just a little bit of context for kind of what we did today, so some of the stuff that we're talking about can be understood in practice. First, you were talking about the warm-up. What do most people get wrong actually about warming up? Because I think the funny thing is, a lot of people just do some leg swings and a few things, but you took us through something that by the end, everyone was just drenched.
So most warm-ups are very basic and very, there's no intent to them. Mm-hmm. Right. It's the intention of the warm up. It's the cueing of a warm up. It's like I told you guys, we're going to start with basic movement. Yeah. Okay. Toe up, toe swipes is what I call it.
We'll have some video going for this too.
Yeah. You go from a nice, easy movement, right? Then you progressively become a little bit more.
Yeah. Reaching down and
reach down. Most kids will start with, all right, we're going to do straight leg kicks, right? Frankensteins or whatever they call them, right? So, that's the first thing they do. Well, that's a very ballistic, very fast moving exercise. You can't just necessarily start with that. You have to prep the central nervous system, right? Yeah. And it's just like anything, a dynamic warm up or a warm up should be patterned and should be taught specifically. Doesn't necessarily have to be sport specific. You can make it some sport specific. Yeah. But overall, all we want you to do is move better.
Want to learn something new?
What's that?
The best way to warm up your body is through your arms.
Sure.
So that's a decent way to.
Why?
It's just the best and fastest way to get your heart rate up.
Oh,
it's just through your arms. So literally just moving your arms.
Did you see how everybody's arms were moving today? Yeah. Once, it's the arms. I
don't know if you've heard that before.
You're right to an extent. As long as you're moving, right, your heart rate's going to get up, right? But is that movement of your arm pattern conducive and equal to what you're doing in the lower body?
No,
right?
But you'll see a lot of kids start. To
it's a good start, right? But you'll see some kids do. Same arm, same leg. Right?
A lot of coordination.
So that's what all that movement is. And and we'll give credit to the people who are due credit. Is like I said, I was talking with somebody today, at the shop today. Is okay. We incorporate the ProtocolZ stuff.
I will never go to a doctor ever again about my general health. All they want to do is put you on pills.
Really well said there by Dana White. Couldn't agree with him more. A lot of us are just trying to get jacked and tan. A lot of us just want to look good, feel good. And a lot of the symptoms that we might acquire as we get older, some of the things that we might have, high cholesterol or these various things, it's amazing to have somebody looking at your blood work as you're going through the process, as you're trying to become a better athlete, somebody that knows what they're doing. They can look at your cholesterol. They can look at the various markers that you have, and they can kind of see where you're at, and they can help guide you through that.
And there's a few aspects too where it's like, yes, I mean, no shade to doctors, but a lot of times they do want to just stick you on medication. A lot of times there is supplementation that can help with this. At Merrick Health, these patient care coordinators are going to also look at the way you're living your lifestyle, because there's a lot of things you might be doing that if you just adjust that, boom, you could be at the right levels, including working with your testosterone.
And there's so many people that I know that are looking for, they're like, hey, should I do that? They're very curious. And they think that testosterone is going to all of a sudden kind of turn them into the Hulk. But that's not really what happens. It can be something that can be really great for your health, because you can just basically live your life a little stronger, just like you were maybe in your 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm. And this is the last thing to keep in mind, guys. When you get your blood work done at a hospital, they're just looking at like these minimum levels. At Merrick Health, they try to bring you up to ideal levels for everything you're working with. Whereas if you go into a hospital and you have 300 nanograms per deciliter of test, you're good, bro, even though you're probably feeling like shit. At Merrick Health, they're going to try to figure out what things you can do in terms of your lifestyle. And if you're a candidate, potentially TRT. So these are things to pay attention to get you to your best self.
And what I love about it is a little bit of the back and forth that you get with the patient care coordinator. They're dissecting your blood work. It's not like you just get this email back and it's just like, hey, try these 5 things. Somebody's actually on the phone with you, going over every step and what you should do. Sometimes it's supplementation, sometimes it's TRT, and sometimes it's simply just some lifestyle habit changes.
All right, guys, if you want to get your blood work checked and also get professional help from people who are going to be able to get you towards your best levels, head to merrickhealth.com and use code POWERPROJECT for 10% off any panel of your choice.
Okay, is the bounce fire, right? There's a method. He's been training bounce fire to his track athletes and his football athletes, right? Christian McCaffrey specifically, right? As a track athlete. Okay, then we take Marinovich, who I don't know if anybody knows Marinovich, right? Yep. And the shit he's been doing forever, right? Dude, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. We take a little bit of that and we add that into it, right? We take a little bit of Kula and we add that into it, right? We take the things that we know and we add that into it. The Schroeder.
Who doesn't want to move like Troy Polamalu?
Right. Some Brian McGinty's like, you know.
He was at Outside the Box. Did
Brian McGinty,
presentation.
So Brian
amazing.
Power Plus, guys. We did a podcast with him in the past.
Did you really? So Brian came to Outside the Box last year, right? Because he's taken the stuff that Marinovich has been doing forever, right? And made it into his system. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually pretty amazing. He's got amazing athletes.
Moving incredible.
Well, and to be fair to McGinty, he was Marinovich was a mentor to McGinty for at least, I think, 7 years.
Oh, wow.
He worked directly with him.
The Schroeder system, we've got guys this year from Outside the Box that have worked specifically with Schroeder.
Ryan Paul.
Right. Ryan Paul and Dan Fichter.
Amazing work.
Amazing stuff that they're doing, right? That Schroeder's been doing that can make people do extraordinary things from a physical standpoint, strength and speed. Yeah. Right? So why not add a little bit of that into it?
So warm up, you had us get our heart rate up. You got to get the heart rate up.
You've got to get, once again, it goes back to central nervous system, but you see how I kind of fed into the high intensity central nervous stuff, right? If I started with that, right? Is it good or is it bad? Probably not good, but it's not bad, but it's not how you want to do it. Okay. You want to start with that towards the end and get the nervous system firing to where then when that nervous system is now on point, okay, then you go outside and then you hit your runs.
Gotcha.
Your body's ready to roll. I always kind of felt like it was like the music of a workout. You know, maybe the music's just kind of whatever in the beginning, and then you kind of ramp up to some of your more favorite stuff or whatever when you're doing stuff that's a higher intensity.
Sure.
So then after that, we went and we did some testing, and we all had different speeds. You were giving us some cues when we were doing that. So can you talk to us about like how you have athletes or you prepare athletes to do that type of testing and what we did?
From a cueing standpoint?
From a cueing standpoint. And then I think when we talk about the workout, one of the coolest things is all of us had different levels of speed, but the treadmill was able to give us the exact workout we needed for the speed that we produced.
Do you want to talk about that? This goes to a point, right? It has come so far from me writing out, right, the manual, okay, literally hand wrote that thing, took me, I remember when they asked me to do it, I was like, yeah, I can get that done in a couple months. Well, it took me 2 years to lay it all out. So
I do want to say the speeds that are in the treadmill now, but before you guys did the upgrade of being able to personally input the speeds was really awesome and really accurate. But now you have it dialed in. Now it's dialed. Now it's actual speed.
Now it's they're.
So you did a good job of predicting where you thought someone would be.
And then all we did was like, somebody asked me, I was like, okay, if they can't do 10 miles an hour, what do you do? Oh, just go to 9 miles an hour. Okay, if they can't do 9, what do you do? Oh, go to 8. Okay, if they can't do 8, now go to 7.
Yeah.
Well, now.
But even defining when they say you can or you can't.
There you go.
This is another thing where, you'll see a lot of the videos go viral for these flat runs at 24, 25. Even, one of our coaches, Tyler, who's I call him our Olympian hopeful, right? He is.
That's him right there.
He has a legitimate shot at being on the USA bobsled team.
Just couldn't look more
skeleton
fake.
crew.
Oh my God,
that's real. So there's
That's
you can
nuts.
You see it? See the cycle of his legs?
Like
look how elastic he is, right?
Boy.
That's what we say is that's completely subconscious. There's no thought process. A pro golfer isn't thinking about his golf swing. He's thinking about the target.
Yeah.
And then everything else happens naturally. You can't hit a baseball coming at you at 100 if you're thinking about anything other than just see the ball.
Here's a cool thing about what we're seeing, right? Because a long time ago, people were like, well, he can't run 24 miles an hour on the ground. Well, now we're able to measure that. And we know exactly if what he's running outside, how close it is he's going to be to running the speed on the treadmill. It's pretty freaking close.
Yeah, so even as you watch this, right, you have all the physical attributes, the springiness and the recoil. But if you take that further up the chain into this concept of the ECM, completely subconscious movement, and the fact that his brain's speed limit is allowing that to happen, right? He wasn't a 24, 25 when he started training with us several years ago as a kid that was playing baseball in college and it wasn't working out for him. So he came to us to train as an outlet.
Yeah.
And he very quickly
turned into he was fast.
And one of our coaches, right?
What else?
But it goes back to me saying, was Tyler fast when he came to us? Yeah, of course he was fast, right? But to go from 20 miles an hour to 24 miles an hour in a 16-week periodization.
16 week?
Pretty close.
Bro. Oh my God.
Now,
but this is someone who was he had the physical capability.
Ready.
This is where I say you have to override the brain. You're reprogramming the brain and remodeling this ECM to be able to handle that type of reaction.
I think this is where you guys really flourish because you guys have tried everything and you're trying everything. So people have the WEC Propulse vest on when they're on the treadmill.
Sure.
I've seen you guys do stuff with bands.
There it is.
I've seen you guys doing stuff where I think maybe the person maybe they have less of their body weight. Or you guys do any suspended? Maybe you don't.
We don't do anything off weighting.
But you guys probably wouldn't be against in trying
fact,
any and all.
We're anti off weighting.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Why?
You want me to tell you why?
Yeah.
Got to be able to hit the ground, right?
So remember me saying I've absolutely have done everything on the tread possible, right? And one of the things that I tried early on, and I saw, I was like, man, okay, so what did I say? Stride length, stride frequency, right? How do you make those, if you have a greater stride frequency, a greater stride length, and you're going to overspeed, that wasn't a concept of speed, right? Overspeed, either through towing or, right? Brilliant idea.
1080 machine can pull you.
Right? You can do, there's so many ways, right? But one thing that I saw is like,
can you make a note to come back to that?
Yeah, we'll come back to that. But we'll go back to the off-weighted overspeed training.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a system early on. This would have been probably 2006. I met an individual who's like, we're doing off-weighted overspeed training on a treadmill. And it's amazing. And he showed me a video of it. And they were off-weighting. And this kid was going like, I don't know, 22, 23 miles an hour, just turning over fast.
Person has some sort of thing that's suspending some of their body
So what
weight
it was
it
was a harness system. It was a harness system over the top. You get hooked in and it was like a hydraulic lift. Go to the side and you actually hear the hydraulics turn on and it would off-weight them, right? So when they got on the treadmill, right, and you crank that thing up 23, 24 miles an hour, they step on and their feet are just rolling really fast. Okay. Well, it's great when it's at like 16, 17, 18 miles an hour, right? But when my big dogs would get on the treadmill and I would off weight them, even 5 to 10 pounds, they get on that treadmill. When they started hitting about 22, 23 miles an hour, that system, as soon as they go into flight phase, goes back to Tim talking about what does the brain want to do? Wants to protect, right? And when you're off weighted and your body feels this motion going up, right? The first thing they do is they overstride.
Trying to break.
Trying to break because they're like, I don't like, the brain's like, fuck this, I don't like this, right? And it starts overstriding. What happens on a high performance treadmill when you overstride? Boom, there goes their hamstring. And I'm not talking like,
but this is true even in a non-motorized.
Yes,
if you're off weighting, that is not the system we want to be developing because the brain is going to go into a protect.
When you modify what we consider optimal mechanics, whether you're on the ground or you're on a high performance treadmill, and you change those mechanics and the brain detects any kind of danger, it's automatically going to want to slow down, right? But when you're trying to slow down and the tread will not slow down because it's still moving at 23 miles an hour, okay, what's the first thing that gives? It's the hamstring.
So let's go back to, so we say, you have all the glitz and the glamour and the things that go viral, but what you don't see is 98% of what we do is incline based.
Yes.
And also, as Beau says, when you're fully weighted and you're at incline, he's never seen a hammy go.
Ever.
So what we do is we create a safe, controlled environment to very precisely overspeed the brain. I'll say the brain because the body's capable, assuming that it's capable. I mean, you have athletes that they need to build their tissues, right? They need to get stronger. They need to enhance the tendons and everything else.
Just to interrupt for a second, but an example of like overspeeding the brain versus maybe overspeed that people may be thinking of, that people utilized before, where you're maybe drafting. Like there's some people that will sprint behind a car. I've seen some athletes do things like that, so they can run a little faster. But where you guys are kind of referring to is you're making the person have to turn over so fast. It's not necessarily because you have the treadmill going 30 miles an hour, but it's a combination of the incline and speed, right?
That's it.
Yeah. So even talking about that, let's come back to, I said, make a note. And again, I'm not an expert. Okay. You can even look at me as the guy outside looking in that just automated this and developed the algorithm for, how to program the actual speeds. This is another hypothesis. The current approach to overspeed that I've seen is pull them with some mechanism. Pull them,
been like that for a long
assisted pull. The other one that I've seen is do a slight decline. And if I ask you what mode is the brain in both of those scenarios, what would you say?
Oh shit.
The braking mode.
Exactly.
So even if they've done studies and there is some advantage that's been seen, like maybe over time they trick the brain for a little bit to say, okay, we're going to keep up with this thing that's pulling me and I'm not going to go face forward. But at the end of the day, that brain is still thinking, keep you safe, be in brake mode. Okay. What does a treadmill do? You have to go forward fast. You can't trick the brain. The brain knows for a fact, if I do not override, and this is where that fight or flight kicks in, this is where you get that little jolt of adrenaline. This is where you hit that 95% or greater, and a little bit of the 2B, 2X muscle fiber might start firing, and you do go faster.
Yeah.
So this is an overspeed in the right direction. This is an overspeed where the brain is going faster, and it knows now that it can go faster.
Yeah. Think about what you're doing today, right? You were running uphill. We weren't running downhill. You weren't being towed, but even at, and I always use the term, the angle 25%, because it's like an average incline that we use, right? Even at 25% incline and you were running, I think 11.3, right? You got on and you were running as hard as you possibly could. Is that considered overspeed? Yes. Right, because once again, it goes back, you're tricking the brain and your body's like, holy shit, right? That other gear, I have to get on and I have to go and I have to do it now. And you have to do it for 6 seconds, then get off and then recover.
Interrupt
for just
a second.
Yeah.
And potentially for someone that's not prepared for it, if he's trying to move his feet that fast on a flat surface, the velocity might be so great that he may injure himself.
That's where these treads, and we always get the negative feedback because that's what everybody sees, right? Somebody's like, okay,
That's not necessarily, yeah, from my standpoint, I don't think it's negative. I think it's just you need to be prepared.
you have
No,
to.
have to
but
also
so
prepare yourself
let's
for the
address
flatter
that as
surface.
well,
Yeah.
because this is something that we hammer in. We see other things on the internet.
We hammered a lot.
Our definition of being able to run a speed is quote unquote good form for minimum 4 to 6 seconds. And so you can assess when that form breaks down. And if you can hold good form for 6 seconds, you're not going to injure. We haven't seen it yet.
Soon as the mechanics break down.
But that's
what
where,
happens.
most of what we do is at incline. Because we're overspeeding at incline. So safe, controlled environment overspeed. Get
That's a
them
good way, yeah.
actually moving faster.
And it's periodized to where when we do quote unquote overspeed or lower incline, higher speeds, right? The way it's periodized within all the protocols, right? And that's the beauty of it, is we don't do overspeed until the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th week, right? Because it takes us 2 weeks of training at incline, right? To teach the brain, right? To override the protective mechanism to where when we do bring the incline to a lower incline and a higher speed, it goes back to what you're saying. Now they're capable of doing that speed.
And the other thing that people don't realize in the protocols is we're never running a 0%.
Ever.
So even when you set the tread to 0%, that's a 3% incline.
Wow.
You just don't know.
You're always running uphill,
So
even at 3%.
and,
right?
and this
It's
is
uphill
why
still.
because it's always at an incline grade, what we do transfers to the biomechanical efficiency
this.
and the application to the ground.
Shit.
Okay, once he gets past that guy, he's not overspeed. But here's the thing about something like that is if, okay, let's take this as an example. Say you put Usain Bolt on the front, right? And Beau Chavez on the back.
Yeah.
Is that overspeed? That's overspeed. Is it good overspeed? I don't think so. You got to have
But
five.
so here's another thing that I want to say about these that you have to keep in mind.
That's good.
And the best comment I saw from someone, you say it's the most expensive treadmill on the planet. One of the best comments I ever heard was the guy that says, "This is what happened when nerds who have money want to do some cool shit."
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. Right? Like, absolutely. Right? So look, you're always going to do the best with what you have.
Exactly.
Now, the fact that we have what we have, we're going to do the best that we can with what we have. And the other thing is, making it affordable. And, these are things where, because we have full control of the entire vertical, with facilities that we're building a brand. Our brand is everything.
And
right?
your treadmill is not necessarily like, okay, I have one and it's at my home, but most of the time it's in a facility where coaches, people that are training people, are putting 4, 5, 6 athletes at a time in one training session on the treadmill, utilizing their programmed profile.
Exactly.
And switching through. And then an hour later, a whole nother group comes in, a whole nother group. So you guys, this treadmill
efficiency-
might be $30K, but you guys have seen people get their money back and then some by having these treadmills in their facilities because it's such a magnet to get athletes in there.
Yeah, the best way to look at it is, if you finance anything, right? How do you buy a car? There's a down payment and there's a monthly cost. And if that monthly cost is significantly less than the revenue that it generates, my ROI is unquestionable. And, simple math, the way we've devised this, 6 athletes per tread per session. Each tread does about 60 to 70 athletes per month if you run the model that we model. And that's why I say we're not in the tread business. Ubrzati is a performance training center. This was a device and automation that we created to support what we do, and that's get athletes moving better, faster, right? Even at 50 athletes times 200 per month, that's 10,000 in revenue. You pay your coach what you pay your coach, plus maybe you pay 1,000. Now you're netting 70% profit. So it's like, the old, hey, you want to buy this backpack for $100,000? I'm not buying a backpack for $100,000. Well, what does the smart guy say? What's in the backpack?
Let me ask you this, because I think this is something that people can take into maybe some of their speed training and think about There are multiple instances today where you cued me, for example, when we were outside, you cued me on relaxation. I hit a PR outside at 18.5, and then you cued me on the treadmill about relaxation. And the cool thing about having the mirror is I was able to actually see myself relax.
That's the whole point,
and
man.
go faster. But people think if I want to go faster, I have to try harder, right? So can you kind of explain
you're
how
perfect.
people can think about this?
You're a perfect example of it today, right? And I'm not picking on you by any means, but I want you to understand is when you say, all right, I want you to go faster, right? Once again, if you don't know how to go faster and you say, okay, try harder, right?
Yeah.
You did that today, right? When I was like, all right, you guys come out of the gates, right? I want you to relax a little bit, build up the speed. And by the time you hit that cone, I want you into the gates, right? But you being, like, oh, I want to get, or you're trying to get like 19 today, right? Or 18, whatever it was you're trying to get.
19. I got 18.5.
So that's the thing, right? You're like in your brain, like, okay, I want to hit 19, right? Well, if you don't know what 19 feels like, you're not going to hit it.
Nope.
Okay. So you come out of those gates today, right? And you're running down, and I saw it happen. As soon as you got to those gates, you got all tight and you leaned forward like that, and your form completely broke down.
Yeah.
Right. And slower. Right. And I came back, right? Relax, get your chest up, right? Just relax, be smooth, right? Through the gates. And that's what you did. But until you know and you feel, okay, you're not ever going to pick it up. That's why I constantly say the tread is a mechanism to teach athletes to run faster, better, move better, faster.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Because you're seeing, you're feeling, you're hearing, and you do it in a periodized approach, the way the protocols are set up. Okay. It's just like any other thing for strength, right? Everybody does strength, and it's in a periodized approach. You go to any strength room in the country, right? Every strength coach, as you guys know, has a specific program that they program for their athletes to get stronger, right? But nobody has a system to run faster. Everybody wants speed, right? But the way they do it is, all right, we're going to go outside and we're going to run fast, right? Like I told you today, all right, the bigs over here, right? The back's here, and I want all my receivers and my fast guys on this side, right? So what happens? All right, go.
Yeah.
Right? Doing all the methods. All right, these guys are running, right? It becomes, at the end of the day, it becomes conditioning. And as Tony Holler says, the steak gets burnt, right? Or can you take these athletes, right? They may not be able to do it, right? But we have the approach and the periodization to running faster. It's a program. It's a specific program geared towards it. That when you get on the tread, you can see, you can hear, you can feel. All right, now that it's dialed in from a speed standpoint, okay, this guy's 10.7. Okay, Mark's at 8.2. This guy's at 9.6. All right, this guy's at 12.7. All right, go. All right, did you see what you just did in the mirror? All right, did you hear me say this? Did you hear me say that? Right, you're seeing, you're hearing, and you're cueing it over and over and over and over again.
And the cool thing about seeing it, by the way, I want to add in is like, in jiu-jitsu, I think about keeping my face relaxed because I always roll better when you're not like, that's one thing you know within the martial art. But even in the mirror, I was able to see myself calm down, relax, pop better, and go faster. It's just like and then that gives you awareness.
As soon as you get that cue, and as soon as you get that feedback, and you feel it, okay, the body is an amazing thing, and now you're teaching it, quote unquote, right? You always hear the term muscle memory, right? Yeah. Here's the thing: repetitively repeat proper mechanics, then the proper muscle firing sequence will happen, right? It's always ass backwards, okay? People try to train the muscle to get faster. Train the movement first, okay? Then the muscle and the proper sequencing of the firing of the muscles will happen, okay? So like in sprinting, as soon as you get the right mechanics down, the muscles will fire in sequence.
Well, and I think even beyond that, that's where you do more research into ECM. And this concept of relaxation.
What's it short for? ECM?
Extracellular matrix.
Okay.
Concept
it exists everywhere. It's basically the foundation of fascia. It's the the non-cellular component of fascia. I think that's kind of a buzzword today, right? The fascia.
Yeah.
But
it's
regardless,
been around. Look up Anatomy Trains as a book, right? And how long has Anatomy Trains been out? Right, it's all about fascial, right, and fascial lines, slings, and everything. That's what ECM is.
But the concept for us is rubber bands. But one of the key aspects of that ECM is the ability. One of its functions is to distribute the load across the fibers. Yeah. Right. So, even when I was thinking of this, I was talking to Mark. If you had a bunch of people, you have 100 guys each holding a rope, and you get 10 guys on the other side to pull on one rope. Now it's one-on-one. Well, what if you had an ability just through design to distribute that load perfectly across all 100 on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Now the efficiency of that is amplified exponentially. Well, this is one of the roles, is my understanding. Again, I'm no expert, challenge it, of the ECM. And when you talk about elasticity, when you talk about reactivity, you know, things that are happening across rubber bands and, you know, stretch and release, right? The bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm.
This is largely because of this extracellular matrix and not the musculature. And as you tense up, the ECM's ability to do what it does naturally dissipates, right? The muscle is taken over. It's not allowing the distribution and the transfer of that force to maximize the efficiency. Because even if you look at tendons, right? Yeah. This elastic power, at the end of the day, it's efficiency. Mm-hmm. Muscles consume massive amounts of energy, this ATP. Well, the tendon does not, right? And that's why that strong Achilles connected to everything else, right? Including ECM and whatever is keeping it tight and the tightness of the tendon. That's why these guys jump 48, 50 inches.
Yeah.
So this is, you know, one of the designs of the treadmill, and the fact that it is built the way it is the power in equals the power out.
This is very key.
If you look at a lot of designs, like I said, I don't even want to get into the treadmill itself. We're not into the tread business, but it's important to understand that this, being a spaceship, was designed with purpose, with intent to develop the elasticity of the athlete, right? If you look at, you watch, if this is the incline mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
you watch that trampoline. So if we're trying to build elasticity, do we want a dampening effect when we hit the ground?
No.
What aspect of plyometric are we getting if I'm losing and dissipating energy every time my foot contacts the ground? This is why what we do, one of the reasons, transfers so well to the field, to the court. And even, you know, swimming, you know, you're talking about Kula, he was given the opportunity to train these swimmers. They went and destroyed competition. They came to him and they said, "What did you do?" I trained them like track athletes. Why? It wires.
Right. That doesn't make sense, right?
It does, though. If you buy into this fact that we're training the brain, we are training the CNS,
Sport agnostic,
and we are utilizing and enhancing every aspect of the ECM, then you begin to say, this makes perfect sense. And that's where we live.
He trained a lot of track athletes, like with field type stuff, like the drills that we were doing.
I'll take Christian McCaffrey.
Coordination.
Take Christian McCaffrey.
Motor patterning, synchronization, timing.
Yeah.
This is, you know, a lot of what we do too is reducing inhibition. When I talked about basal ganglia, right, the modulation, there's a dopamine that gets released that is the fuel for the receptors of the basal ganglia. Well, the more you can reduce inhibition, right, the go and the no-go and how those sync up, that's how well you move.
You've heard of reciprocal inhibition.
That's why things become subconscious movement.
That's why I hear the term, you got to be relaxed, right? Because remember, when one side is contracted, the other side, all right, has to relax. And how fast can you get that muscle to relax while the front side or the back side, right, is contracted? That's part of it too. How do you do it? Okay, talk about the ECM again, right? Running uphill. What is one of the greatest things about running up a hill, though? Okay, reciprocal inhibition. Well, that front side has to come up right into triple flexion. The back side automatically has to what? Relax. And if you get it to relax, you increase the range of motion on the back side. See what I'm saying? So if this side is all contracted, that back side has to stay relaxed, right? More dorsal flexion, okay, increases, all right, the elasticity of the gastroc soleus complex. You increase the elasticity of the gastroc soleus complex, right? The greater the stretch, the greater resulting contraction. And every muscle in the human body, in all planes of motion.
But even this, you know, the focus on, when we're getting into these speeds, the last thing we care about is the muscle. Yeah. Now, yes, that 2B2X, like if you're in auto mode, that 2B2X, that's why we train the 6 to 8 seconds. You're pure anaerobic PC. Yeah. You know, you talked about, what's a play in football? What's a play? Mm-hmm. Listen, your anaerobic energy system max, what is it, 10 seconds, right? And if you look at the protocols, it's 6 to 10 seconds, mostly 6 to 8.
Yeah.
That's the real reason. We are pushing that thing to the max. And what you think is your max, I guarantee you, if you haven't trained Ubrzati, you don't know what your max is.
Curious about this real quick, because a tendency as people want to get faster, they will try to go faster. We just talked about relaxation. Well, how about breathing? Because I think that you get different messaging out here about breathing. So some people would be like, it doesn't matter if you hold your breath when you try to go faster. Some people will try to sync the breath with the movement. So what are your thoughts on when you see an athlete hold their breath as they're trying to get faster? Does it matter, or?
I'll take it in case you want to.
Well,
and again, this is coming from a guy who's not the expert, right? I'm not trying to have all the answers, but I can tell you what my answer is. We don't coach it.
Okay.
So a lot of times, I'll hear somebody talk to an athlete about, the direction of their arms. And I'll say, you should be careful not to coach the athlete out of the athlete.
Cristiano Ronaldo sprinted like this, by the way.
But listen,
when he was on field.
so I had a dad the other day. He says, my son, when he runs, he's really out here with the direction. I said, you know what that probably helps him with? Changing direction.
Exactly.
So he's like, you mean I shouldn't get him to run with his arms straight forward and back? I said, if you do, you're probably hurting him more than you're helping him.
Think about your pulsing today, right? Somebody sees pulsing, they're like, hey, that's, it's got to be 90, 90, 90, right? Stiff arms, that's not the case, right? You watch some of the, Weck talks about it a lot, right? Is, head over foot, that spiral engine, right? The spine, should it be stiff or should it be fluid?
See, and I have another theory too. This is where I love bringing in let
me answer breathing. I've never taught it, right? Is there methods to breathing? Yes. Are we experts at breathing? No.
But if you think about this is the other thing with the treadmill is it forces you to create true biomechanical efficiency. And in the process of doing that, where you're continually hitting the threshold of where the brain believes you are safe at your maximum speed, if you start thinking about your breathing, do you think that's going to help you or hurt you?
No.
In other words, the human body at some stage is going to naturally breathe the way that it knows is optimal. Now, relaxation and tension is something that is, we get relaxed, get smooth. These are good cues. Like don't try, just let the body do what the body wants.
How are you
to
breathing today at top speed? I mean, did you think about it?
I didn't think about it because when I've done this stuff before, I have worked on having my breathing kind of match my tempo. So my breathing just falls in line with my movement, but it's because I've kind of done that before. But that's why I was wondering, because I'm curious what you guys notice with fast athletes. Is there a tendency? Is there a pattern? Or do these athletes breathe in different ways for them to go fast?
From what I've
themselves?
seen, the fast athletes want once when they're hitting a 6 second or a 4 second high speed run, I don't really see them breathing. I think it's
the other,
I don't know, to be honest.
The other thing too is as you're striving for subconscious movement.
Yeah.
Why would you want to think about your breathing?
No,
I think it naturally happens.
Yeah.
What about strength? I think I think there's different patterns when you do like a heavy lift, right? Do you suck in right through the nose and then compress and then go down and then come out of it? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I mean,
you would know way more about that than I would.
Well,
I think that's the same as when you're doing a high speed run.
Well, it's there's some similarities because so when you're running, like you literally kind of have to breathe. When you're lifting, you don't necessarily have to breathe because the lift, if you're doing a 1 rep max, doesn't have to
that's what I'm talking about.
Last very long. So you could just blow some air out on your way up, and that would be sufficient enough. And some people like to have that extra pressure. It's almost like a blood pressure. You could try to get your blood pressure to be high on purpose. And you're trying to brace yourself.
Bracing is what I was going to allude to.
And obviously you don't want to be bracing when you're sprinting.
When you get into bracing, then we get into that. I think Weck, is part of that too. Is what he's no bracing.
Something I've learned over the years.
When you were showing the going up on the treadmill, when we were coming back and the floats, right? Yeah. Something you did was you exhaled hard, which is a form of bracing. When you see lifters scream like Olympic lifters, etc., it's a strong exhalation, but that is also a bracing of the structure without having to hold the breath, you know? So that's why I was just curious about this, like what you guys
See, and naturally, I didn't even think about that, right? I just was like, okay, I want you to be aggressive, right? For me, being aggressive is coming back and then get up the tread, right?
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Maybe you can experiment with that. But
There we go.
Over time, I'm going to ask you guys this in a year. I'm just curious what
So
you
that
guys...
so that makes it. So
Well, the
that's the
best
cool thing
thing would
about
be
this,
for
right? Is
you to
now we're
try
going to
it.
think about it, right?
Well, I think, something I've learned over the years is sometimes when you have to think about something, you're thinking about it because it's a problem.
Yeah, and that's where I
That's
say
usually why you're thinking about something, which is good.
And I don't want to
still.
give you
It's good.
some bullshit answer because we don't coach.
Yeah,
breathing.
somebody might say, "Hey, man, what do you do for sleep?" You're like, "I don't know. I never thought about it." It's like, okay, well, if you never thought about it, that's actually awesome. That probably means you have good sleep.
Yeah.
well,
But it
you
could
know
also
the other
mean,
thing
what could
that's-
you do to improve it? Like,
Yeah,
what if
but-
there's improvement there?
Yeah, there could be.
Another interesting thing about that as it relates to what we do is go back to the fact that our sprints are 6 to 8 second in the anaerobic.
Right.
So it's I don't want to
Probably
say
not,
it's a zero oxygen, but it's a minimal oxygen for that period of time.
No oxygen.
Now I think, I don't think it's
Depends.
purely. I think it's probably like an 85%, but either way, right?
It's supposed to be.
I think
It's an anaerobic zone. Yeah.
Right.
It's definitely anaerobic, no doubt.
It is anaerobic, but I don't know. It is supposed to be no oxygen.
Well, there's
we'll
a
call
lot of
some people.
oxygen within your body already, whether you're breathing
sure,
or not. It's
for sure.
irrelevant. Almost.
Regardless, I think what it comes back to in terms of the breathing is, are you relaxed?
Yeah.
Are you at your optimal efficiency?
It's going to allow you to
for
run
how you move.
the most relaxed, and what you said earlier about being able to run for 4 to 6 seconds. What was that you said? You said like 3 different things. Said
Well, so if we're judging form at top speed, say at the flatter inclines, it has to be 4 to 6 seconds of what we consider to be perfect form. Now, understand there is no perfect, but for that athlete, they are clearly in control of their biomechanical movement pattern.
When it's bad, you know it's bad. Just like anything.
In other words, if they lose their hips behind them
Yeah.
and they get long on the backside, they're done.
meaning like they
can't handle the speed anymore,
Their
and they're
feet and knees are
Yeah.
back
The first
behind
thing that
their butt.
happens, the hips slip out, and they
So
start
that-
trying to.
that tall posture we're talking about today, right? Getting tall, as soon as that's gone, your body can no longer maintain speed, right?
And this is also the concept of, keeping up with the belt, because the reality is you're not keeping up with, you are overcoming the belt.
that's
So have you heard, you ever read Jordan B. Peterson, the paradox of the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Okay, so I think this describes what we do better than anything.
Okay.
You have to run as fast as you can to stay where you are. So what this means is, as soon as you slack off, you're gone.
off the team.
So when it comes to running on a treadmill with these, this front side mechanic and this, you are not keeping up with the belt. If you're doing it correctly, you are overcoming the belt.
that's been the
That
biggest.
means you have to apply that force, and if you're not in a truly elastic, reactive spring effect, you're not keeping up with the belt.
So no matter how well someone's conditioned, and it doesn't matter how fast somebody is, people can only maintain a certain speed for a really short period of time. It probably is in this 4 to 6 second time
I think
frame,
max speed, when they measured out with, like, you're talking like top track athletes, I think sustained top speed is, I think
Maybe a few.
2 to 4 seconds, maybe.
So it's short, no matter how great of an athlete we're talking about, it's going to be short.
Yeah.
And then they what they say about Bolt is they say it's kind of an illusion that he's like just completely blowing past everybody. Everyone else is actually slowing down quite a bit. He decelerates the least. I've heard people say something like that. Obviously, he's reaching top speed,
So
and
he's able
faster than people.
Well, he's an anomaly, right?
But I also think that comes down to the level of elasticity. How much spring effect is he getting per stride? Because it uses no energy. Or it's at least 50% or more greater efficiency if it's elastic.
He takes less steps
Again,
and everything than everybody
He takes less steps, and he's able to maintain top speed. So just think if everybody's top speed, they average, I think once they hit about, I think it's 40 meters, maybe 40 to 60 meters is when everybody technically starts slowing down. They've already hit top speed and now they're starting to slow down. He just maintains top speed longer and is able to maintain that. That's why his starts, when you watch him, right, he comes out and he's not the greatest starter, right? Gatlin, I think, is his biggest rival. That guy blows out in the first 20 meters, right? And then Usain Bolt just kind of catches up because then he hits that top speed and he maintains that. By the time he hits top speed, Gatlin's already slowing down. Gay's already slowing down.
And I've even heard that
there's so many theories about it, right?
They continue to accelerate for longer.
Yeah,
in other
right.
words,
That's one
if
thing
we
too.
were to sprint, we may hit top speed at 20, 30 yards. They're going to hit top speed beyond. They continue to accelerate.
All right.
It is interesting, you know, when you have someone like Usain Bolt, you know, he's got the fastest 100-meter ever. I think he may have at one point had the fastest 200-meter. Maybe he still has that. But there's other people who've had, you know, the fastest 60-meter, but he's the fastest man on earth with the 100 and 200. But if you just have him either race shorter or have him race longer, he's no longer the fastest. You know, if somebody else does a 400, or if you take, you know, a theoretical matchup that people have talked about, would be like, how far would Bolt have to run against Kipchoge, who's got the marathon record? You know, it'd just be fun to like watch. Like, does
But this is where it
Bolt
goes
get
into the
smoked
energy
at, Does he get
systems,
smoked
right?
at 800 meters, or you know, how far do they got to go before the race gets closer? You know what I mean? It's just interesting.
Well, when you tap into the energy systems and metabolic factors, one thing that you were talking about that today, okay, is how many people actually in a training session actually get to anaerobic threshold, right? 85 to 90%, 100% of their max heart rate, okay, and are able to repetitively do that over and over. You've got to train your body to do that. We can't get into metabolic factors. That's a deep dive, right? And that's kind of, as I say, above my pay grade.
It's kind of outside of what
there's
you guys
One thing. You want me to tell the soccer player story?
Yeah, you can. And then I want to hit on something that is, it's coming from a different direction of what I really think the value of this training is.
So one thing we had an opportunity to do was, this was Dario and I. I don't think Tim was part of us at that point in time. So we got called by, got a call from Leicester City, which is a European Premiership soccer team out of Leicester City in England, I believe. And they called us and they said they had a specific player who was a midfielder. His mechanics were terrible. He wasn't able to go the full 90 minutes. We needed him to go the full 90 minutes. We're paying the max amount of dollars. We're going to buy your tread because we think that's an answer. Can you come out and help us with this player? So we said, sure. So we come out and me and Dario, right? You know, we get there and we're having fun. Dario's being Dario, getting in the cold tub with everybody and getting on the team bus and taking pictures and getting samples of protein bars, and, you know, he's having a good time. And I'm in the corner thinking, fuck, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this guy, right? So my thought process goes, okay, soccer player versus football player, right? They're saying, okay, he's not lasting 90 minutes, so I'm going to modify speed. I always maintain incline. That's one thing I tell everybody is we always maintain incline. It's the incline that determines the biomechanical efficiency of what we want these athletes to be able to get to reach top speed when it's flat, technically, out on the field. So anyway, long story short is like, I go to Dario, right? I go, I don't really know what I'm going to do. He's like, well, we got to do something. I'm like, okay, I'm going to run him through the distance protocol. So we have a distance protocol. So I take him through level 1, day 1, session 1. Okay. Teach him how to get on the treadmill on off, just like I did with you guys today. Yeah. And Leicester City, right, has all these, heart rate monitors on him, not vault system. It was catapult, right, to put a catapult on him, biomarkers, blah, 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 right? They just have the money to be able to do that. And so I said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to modify speed. I'm going to modify time. Okay, so I'm going to take an 8-second run. I'm going to make it a 12-second run. Okay, change the parameters. Instead of ATP, I'm going to go more towards the aerobic type system, right? But I'm going to push him pretty hard. Yeah. So at the end of the day, right, I just modified those two factors, and we trained him for a total of 4 minutes and 4.5 minutes total of run time. Okay, and they mapped out his physiological parameters and his metabolic factors. And his metabolic factors in that 5-minute period was the same metabolic factors that he had in an 80-minute high-level European Premiership, and we did it in 5 minutes. Meaning, because they asked us, we need to up his intensity, right? We got to get him running better, right? We have to change his mechanics because they knew his mechanics were causing a lot of the issues, right? He wasn't Ronaldo, like, you know, how, like you said, right? Yeah. He's running bad, right? But he's still Ronaldo, okay? This guy had to run up and down the field a lot. So long story short, we got his physiological parameters, and he started ticking up, and he hit that physiological parameter, and the same thing that they saw in a full 80-minute soccer match. So we decreased the volume, right? Because they had him out on the pitch, running him day after day, trying to get him to run correctly. But once again, he didn't know what they were talking about. He didn't feel it, he didn't see it, and he didn't do it. So what were they doing? They were just trying to condition him at the end of the day. Yeah. But when we got him on the treadmill, the mirror's in front of him, and it goes back to what we were saying, right? He saw, he felt, he did, right? He ran up the hill correctly, right? But his heart rate started ticking up, right? To get to that anaerobic threshold, and we did it in 5 minutes as opposed to 80 minutes, right? Decrease volume, up intensity. Is that a great way to train an athlete? Without a doubt. To me, it's the best way. And you saw that today. You're like, man, can I have a minute break? Nope. No, I can't have a minute break. But total, right? How many minutes did you actually run today? I mean, I dose you guys pretty good because we had a lot of things to do. But on average, within the protocols themselves, athletes run them 3 minutes and 20 seconds total. But it's high intensity.
Question real quick. Why is it, I've noticed with using the treadmill, again, I've used the treadmill twice now. The first time with Mark and the second time now with you guys. But after both of these sessions, it feels as like a great input. I was able to move fast for myself, but I also don't feel absolutely thrashed. Like I know I'm going to be able to have a good workout tomorrow again too. I know you could have made the workout harder. You could have thrashed even more.
I could have thrashed you.
Of course. But
is that the best for the athlete? No.
Yeah, but no, it's a excellent question, right? But this comes back to the fact that we're not really training your muscles. This is where it comes into it is neurological. It is extracellular matrix. This is spring effect.
Yeah.
This is optimal efficiency. Are the muscles involved? I believe they are. I also believe that we recruit the 2B2X fight or flight muscle fiber so that when you're subconsciously creating that pre-tension that allows you to maximize your spring effect, that's the fiber you're using. So our athletes have access to that without thought on the field, on the court.
Yeah.
And after less than 2 weeks, it goes dormant. What do you need now to access it? Adrenaline. You need fight or flight. So we're recruiting that. We're developing it. And it's accessible to the athlete with the intent to create that pretension, to create that elasticity. So you can have that workout and it's an ultimate primer to now go lift heavy.
Yeah, that's the thing that we haven't
if that's what you want to do.
You lift heavy after?
Well, we do explosive. So we're really into the VBT. Everything is sports centric. What is the range of motion? You know, this is where we don't, the essence of Ubrzati is what we do with the high performance tread. But again, it does not replace anything in the rack. It does not replace anything on the ground. It enhances all of it.
I think getting faster, I shouldn't say I think, I know getting faster gets you stronger without being in the rack. But here's the thing. You have to get into the racks. We understand that. We know that, right? We do it, okay? But if you can teach what Tim is talking about, right, automatically you get into the weight room. You can talk to a strength coach about this. If I can say, coach, I can get you stronger in the weight room without taxing, right, in the high volume of weights that you're using, we can make you faster than get you in the weight room and get you stronger and move the weight faster. That's where VBT comes into play. If you can move that heavy weight with velocity, okay,
through specific ranges
of motion, right?
That apply to sport. And
we talked about it today. Is quarter squat, half squat, and full squat better? We don't know, right? But what we're saying is we basically, by training speed and the way we do speed, okay, we are going to get you stronger in the weight room. We get you strong in the weight room, which is what everybody loves. You're going to get strong and you're going to be fast on the field.
But in a way that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
so we're big believers in proper application of eccentric.
Yeah.
We're proper application of the isometric, right? And without getting into all of that, because this is where a lot of expertise does exist, and we lean heavily on expertise, but we take from the expertise what we think makes sense for our athletes.
Well, if you do something like 3 sets of 10 of a fairly deep squat with, 70% of your max, you're probably going to end up being pretty sore from that. If you just flip the numbers around, you do 10 sets of 3, you utilize short rest in between, and you don't do a full squat. You do like a half squat or quarter squat. Now you're training something completely different. You're training your central nervous system.
Yes.
You could say you're training your brain. You're training for
Well,
explosiveness.
even motor unit recruitment.
Right. And now you're not going to get as sore. And now you can have another training session. But, not getting really sore is actually like a really interesting thing. Like, okay, some soreness is probably good here and there, but trying to not avoid it, but trying to be conditioned enough to where that's not really a problem is probably a better place to be for most athletes. Because I don't think you want to walk around all stiff and sore all the time.
Typically if you see soreness, they're accessing something they just haven't ever done before. Right? So this is like a wake up. The brain is like, what just happened?
Yeah, right.
And one of the primary uniquenesses that we believe we possess is using speed to program speed.
The way that I use Methylene Blue is very similar to the way that you're using it. I don't use it every day. I think things that push that button to change your mood, you might want to be a little cautious with it. In my opinion, and the feelings that I get from Methylene Blue, it does change my mood a little bit. It's a mood enhancer. When I go out and run, I feel like I do have a little bit more endurance. I do feel like I can breathe a little bit better, but that could also be, I've been training very hard as well, so it could be an adaptation to that as well. But as we've had, David Herrera and many other people have come on the show before, they basically just say Methylene Blue is a electron donor, and it allows the body to utilize energy just more efficiently. And I don't know if I can feel that per se, but I know that I feel better when I'm running, when I'm using Methylene Blue.
Yeah, post sessions of grappling, that's when I usually use. I use it 2 or 3 times a week. Post sessions of jiu-jitsu, I always feel like I have more energy, like much more energy than I typically have, which makes me understand that, if I did want to go for longer sessions, I could, but it also helps me understand that I'm going to be recovering better for my next session the next day, which is a big deal. But yeah, I think that if you guys, first off, this stuff is great because it's third-party tested. Methylene Blue, in other sources like the stuff that you'll see on Amazon or like random websites, there's no regulation. So a lot of people have levels of toxicity from the supplement because it's not dosed correctly. And there are other things in that Methylene Blue. Again, this is something that is lab made. It's not, you know what I mean? So you got to be careful. And this is why we like using this stuff, because we know it's not going to mess us up.
You can go on their website. You can go on the Transcriptions website and you can get a report of the third-party tested Methylene Blue and double, triple check it for yourself. In addition to that, they have the Canatine, which I have not used that much, but when I have used it pre-workout, I did notice I get a zip from it. I think it has nicotine in it, along with a couple other things to go along with the Methylene Blue. So do yourselves a favor, check out Transcriptions, check out what they got. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.
Everyone measures speed.
Yeah.
Record, rank, publish. It's important, right? Numbers matter. It gives you an objective. Hold your breath versus hold your breath for 1 minute. Which one is going to have you hold it for 1 minute? I guarantee it's hold it for 1 minute. Because when you hit 30 seconds and you want to breathe, 5 more seconds, 5 more seconds, 5. Oh, I just hit a minute. I could probably do a minute 30 now, right? So it is important to measure. But I haven't seen anything else where they use that output as an input to prescribe, to program with precision at incline in a safe, controlled environment that forces the athlete to override the brain and go exactly as fast.
You guys experienced it today.
As the body is capable of going. Yeah. So you're just incrementally increasing the governor.
I know that Zach Bitter, he once held a record 100-mile runner, ultra runner. He ran like a 6 minute and 30 second, something crazy like that. The whole time, for 100 miles, something disgusting like that. He's unbelievable. But a lot of his training is sprinting. He does a lot of sprinting. Now, sometimes he's sprinting 400s and things like that are a little bit longer duration than what you guys are talking about. But
He loves hill sprints. He loves just regular, even like 40-yard sprints. He does them often. He does quite a bit of, he's able to implement like quite a bit of volume in them. The Ingebrigtsen brothers are famous, and their dad trains them. Their dad was not a track coach, but he actually has them training on a treadmill quite a bit, and those guys have world records in the 800 meter, maybe 400 meter. It's one of the brothers. I forget. There are two brothers, both compete, and they're amazing, but they go as far to like check, their lactic acid threshold.
That's deep.
They prick the finger. But the whole thing with them about the treadmill, because they a lot of people thought that training on a treadmill was bullshit, and these guys come along and they're doing it. You guys are obviously doing it, but these guys liked how controllable the training was. You could set the speed, and you had to run just like this.
Exactly.
Whereas if you go out for a run, and these are high level guys, these are Olympic athletes, so they're not going to go out in like a ginger run and just run for 4 miles and not like keep track of it, right? They're always going to be focused and honed in. But the point is, when you're on a track or you're just out on some of these other runs, it's really easy to lose track of how fast you're going. When you're on that treadmill, you have to have a very particular turnover with your legs, and you have to have a very particular speed, and maybe even the way he's leaning in this video, like maybe
that's a distance kind of like,
you know what I mean? Like
cool,
maybe it's like
fine.
He's got like almost all the attributes that he's going to have when he's going to do.
But it goes back to that governor, right? So if say he's on the ground and he starts feeling fatigued, usually, and what do they say? Fatigue makes cowards of us all, right? As soon as you get that fatigue, most likely you're going to slow down. Some people have the capacity to not do that, but if he is set at 8% incline and his trainer sets it at 9 miles an hour, and he says, okay, I need you to do this for 5 minutes, he's got one option. Or two, actually, right? Do or do not, right? Fight or flight, right? It's very controllable. And what we're seeing, and I wanted to kind of get into this today because part of it too is, I was talking to you about it, is the way that an athlete comes in, okay, and says, all right, how are you feeling today? You're ready to perceive exertion, or we can do some VBT work, or you have a whoop, or whatever it may be, whatever variability it may be, okay? Do you really know how that athlete is feeling? Okay? Let's take the subjectivity out. This is the beauty.
This is a big part of
this is what Tim has created that just is absolutely mind-blowing and just doesn't exist. And I'm going to use, I always hate when people are like, oh, my athlete's this or my athlete's that. I'm like, God, dude, okay, I get it. You're a
coach, right?
Yeah,
my clients.
Exactly, cool. My clients, right? But I'm going to use this one specific from a subjectivity standpoint. Okay, it goes back to the speed aspect of measuring speed. Okay.
Well, and even the health of the athlete.
The health of the athlete. That's what this is all about. I had a girl softball player, right? And she did a tournament on Friday. They play like a ridiculous amount of games, like 3 games on Friday, 4 games on Saturday, 4 games on Sunday.
Girls fast pitch softball weekends are insane.
And that's just how it is. It's ridiculous. A huge amount of volume, right? Yeah. Okay, so she had a training session with me on Monday. From a coaching standpoint, I'm like, man, this girl's going to be shot. Okay, she's tired. She's exhausted. Okay, from a subjective standpoint, I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to take it easy on her today. All right. She comes in. We go through the exact same warm-up you guys did today, right? Go outside. She goes outside on the lasers, just like you did today, and I think she hits 19.2 miles per hour. PR. Right? I'm like, holy shit.
Never in a million years would you have guessed. And even if you asked her, she would have said, man, long weekend, a lot of games. Uh-huh.
Or from a coaching standpoint, how many games you play? Oh, I played 15. Fuck, okay. You know what? You need to go home, take it easy, go recover, go in the, right? But on that specific day, she came in and PR'd at 19.2 miles, hit 19 miles an hour ground speed. I go in, put her on the tread. There's her speeds. This is a program we're doing today.
Yeah. Via the algorithm,
right? These are her speeds. Boom, hits it. She gets on the tread and hits a PR on the tread for 19.5. Gets off the tread, right? Give her a break. Then we always do some kind of velocity movement with a mass-specific force lift, right? She did a trap bar deadlift and hits 315 pounds on a trap bar deadlift, PR. Why? I would have never in a million years thought about that, right? Until the speed told me she's ready to roll today.
She's healthy.
Right? We had a case in point last week, a kid, right, came through, right, ran
The opposite.
runs 14 miles per hour.
Yeah.
A normal 15.5,
Yes,
16.
yeah. So now we can red flag kids based on the logarithms running through the lasers without VBT, without rating of perceived exertion, without taking lactic acid buildup, right? All this, you know, if the speed says, hey, they're good to go, boom, get them on the tread, right? Boom, we're going today.
I think it's great too because you're making them do the sprints. Like they have
Yeah.
to do an actual sprint for the day.
And if they're tired, it's going to show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very objective
amazing, man.
measurement.
How many times a week are some of these kids exposed to that sprint? Is it usually like twice a week, 3 times a week?
2 to 3 times.
Okay, so it's not like every day. There's just
Yeah, and you're a minimum
Yeah.
48-hour recovery
Yeah.
between any 2 sprints,
Average-
base sessions.
Like that, the softball girls, they go Tuesday, Thursday. Okay, most football players, they go Monday, Wednesday.
and most of what you guys do is usually like a 2-day a week. Like in terms of
Out of
in terms
season,
of what
2 to
people
3.
do on the treadmill. The treadmill is mainly like a 2-day a week program from what I've seen.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, and even day 3 we'll mix in 360s, change of direction, supplemental, but low CNS. And if you're in season, it's a 1x per week.
That's another thing.
Because we want to recruit that to be 2x.
They're in season, they come in, we hit a specific protocol. In fact, we're developing a specific in-season protocol, right? They come in, they go through their warm-up, right? Go through their warm-up, get on the tread, hit a high-speed run at, say, 75 to 85%. That's another thing we can talk about.
All right. Yes. I want to ask you guys your experience using this with athletes because we've been using the Propulse Power Vest. I just call this thing the Bounce Vest, right? But people see this on social media. People be roasting Mark about it here and there. And what do you guys notice using this with athletes? What is it helpful with? What does it maybe improve?
Do we have the empirical numbers, data?
Nope.
Nope. At this point, we don't. Do we know that it works? Yes.
One of the things we say is we try really hard to not get lost in minutia that would be distractive from very measurable results in performance.
Yeah.
The athletes and what they feel across the board.
Do you guys have some
a little more
hypothesis?
explosive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have people run the same speed or faster?
No. So let's take these women that are running here, right? These are average age right here is probably 45 years old.
Okay.
Okay. And all of them, I'll put the WEC vest on them. I just call it the WEC vest. It's just easier, right? It's the WEC vest, right? Put the WEC vest on them and they all PR.
Do you have
Okay.
a hypothesis as to why? What are your thoughts?
It goes back to I'm understanding what's going on with the WEC vest is as they go into flight phase, right? That vest comes up with them as they go down into ground contact, right? All that weight from the vest goes down into that central nervous system, goes through the muscles, causes a greater contraction of the muscles, right? In the ground contact phase, right? The toe touch or the foot strike phase, causing greater contraction, the greater stretch, the greater resulting contraction. And when they come off to the next,
This is
step.
where,
we don't know.
Beau and I deviate on, his thoughts. He speaks a lot of, muscular talk, right?
Yeah.
Contract and I really believe that it is a ground reaction force
Exactly.
that is at play, but I believe that it's at play through this ECM and elasticity.
And a level of rhythm.
Absolutely.
Because you can
Yeah,
hear it,
you can hear.
feel
Did you
it.
hear it today when I said, okay, I want you to put it on when you're doing the holds, right?
Yeah.
Or when we're doing the bounce fire.
Yeah.
When you're doing the bounce fire correctly, that ProPulse vest, right,
clean.
sounds good.
So it's an audible feedback, right?
Yeah.
Timing, how much force. Even the head over foot about efficient is if you get over, you're applying more. This is where the tread and the design power in, power out. Building that recoil, that spring-like effect. And these propulsors is just a spring inside of a case, right?
Yeah.
So as I come down, there's going to be a delay in that force, and I listen, I see all the measurements, things like that. I try not to get lost in it.
Yeah, we don't wanna-
Because, listen, if you're we challenge it, we try it. Do the athletes love it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if some people put it on,
Let
it's not
WEC
hard.
figure out if,
Yeah, it's not too hard.
It's going to take
get
studies. You know, at the end of the day, you have to have studies.
Yeah.
Because
What
that's
about-
the only way to. We can say all day long, yeah, it works, right? Because somebody's going to come up and challenge you, like, well, okay, well, prove it. How does it work? Why does it work?
Well, somebody asked us the other day about, have you measured the dorsiflexion on athletes over time, and how has that been impacted? And I said, you know what? If they're adding 4 to 6 inches of vertical jump in 8 weeks, the last thing I'm going to do is analyze their dorsiflexion.
That's for the smart guys.
Now, right, but at the same time, I would love for a university professor to get his hands on and say, I'm going to do an extensive study on dorsiflexion. But there's going to be a lot of uniqueness from athlete to athlete. And you don't want to, coach the athleticism and the way that they're wound and wired. One of the prime examples that Eugene uses is a Mike Trout. He goes into the Angels organization and they show him some charts and they say, what do you think? He says, what do you mean, what do I think? They said, well, what do you think? Just look at this data. He says, that's Mike Trout. And they're blown away that he knew it was Mike Trout. This is just data. Mm-hmm. And he says, well, what do you think? You're right. It's Mike Trout. And he said, I think he's one of the greatest baseball players who's ever played. He's coming off an MVP season.
Yeah.
This guy is doing a lot of things better than anyone else on the planet. That's what I think. And I say, well, you don't think based on this data that he might be susceptible to injury, or that there's something that we could do to make him even better? And he said he wanted to flip the fucking table over. He says, if you mess with that, you're making a big mistake.
That's part of it too.
So a lot of what we do is we don't get lost in the minutia, right? We're focused on what is it that this does? What is the essence of Ubrzati? Why is it sport agnostic? And a lot of it is a reward system. This is another aspect we haven't even talked about. When you're on the tread and you're hitting PR after PR and you're continually seeing speeds increase and verts increase and broads increase and the amount of weight that you can lift and how fast you can lift it increase, that's gamification. That's a feedback. That's a reward system. This is dopamine boost. Dopamine feeds the basal ganglia. Basal ganglia is your muscle memory. It's also where mood is controlled.
Yeah.
How you feel, right? Why do you work out? Because I feel good. When you perform better, you feel good, right? So this is that feedback loop that we tap into in a safe, controlled environment that continually improves the athlete.
Goes back to, like Tim was saying, you got a guy like Usain Bolt. Are you going to change his mechanics? No, Usain Bolt. There's some kids that it goes back to pulsing, right? You'll see someone will come up and be like, you want to fix, Tim goes back, you want to fix their hands, right? Well, they're pulsing, right? If you don't understand or you don't know what pulsing is, right? And you get into that, and they're doing that head over that toe. Do you really want to change that? No. That backside whip, right? You're getting that backside whip. Right? They get what we call whippy.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that bad? No, it's not bad. It's actually pretty good. Right? We don't want to change that.
Who is it? Ed Reed?
Ed Reed, right? You go Ed Reed, Michael Jordan. You can name tons of these guys that you look at their movement. You're like, oh, we really need to fix that, because if not, it's going to cause some kind of injury. No, you don't fix it. Why? Because he's already at a high level. Why are you going to fix it? Let's maybe even possibly see if we can duplicate it. But we don't change something that doesn't need to be changed from a movement standpoint. There are some things you can pick apart and like, okay, we need to fix this. Okay. But if they're already moving better and they're a fact and they're fast and they're effective, don't change anything.
At the end of the day, we're really focused on this concept of neuroplasticity, right? Mm-hmm. What does it say? Their ability to learn movements, mm-hmm. right? Sprinting is the ultimate high speed. Everything has to happen in sequence, and it just naturally organizes itself into optimal efficiency, especially if you can speed up the process of learning through this safe, controlled environment that is this device called a high-performance treadmill that just happens to have a guy's life's work built into what do I do with this thing, combined with all of the automation and technology that we've integrated that takes your speed on any given day and completely tailors the program
game changer,
to put
dude.
you at your threshold for 6 to 8 seconds of optimal movement efficiency. This translates to an ability through this neural plasticity that is being remodeled and enhanced to go learn skills. Because it's the same, you're trying to motor function, motor patterning, subconscious capability to perform skill. And we believe speed development, sprinting is also a skill.
What else is going on with the treadmill? Because I think I saw bands, and then I've seen people maybe like attached to something behind them.
So it goes back
I
to-
think I've seen people with belts on.
So it goes through the levels, right? So I mean, we're continuing to make somebody faster. You have to change speeds, change inclines. I mean, do different types of holds, add resistance. You know, you can't add resistance to. No, I would say try to put function on top of dysfunction. You don't
Make
get
sure
to those
they're moving well before you load it.
You've got to move better before you load it. What I say earlier, right, is don't train the muscle, train the movement. Okay, muscle follows movement. Okay, so when you see somebody with the attachments on the backside, okay, that's a higher level. What am I trying to do? Make somebody who's already fast even faster, right? By enhancing the stretch reflex, right? It was the elasticity. How do you do that? Add some resistance to it, but they have to be able to overcome that specific resistance.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if we get an athlete that progresses beyond, we have level 0, age 8 to 12, level 1, you get into the middle school, high school, level 2, now you're elite high school, collegiate, and then level 3 and 4, you're going to be professional. But
See, that's acceleration.
as you start moving really well and that biomechanical efficiency is being optimized, you light load
Yeah.
the system.
It's not heavy loads, it's light loads.
Yeah, what's that pulley thing?
So that's a Beyond Power official Voltra.
That's a
2.
cool piece of equipment.
I tell everybody, I say, you have to have this device in your facility. And they say, how much is it? I said, don't worry, it'll be the best money you ever spent.
It's like 2K, 2,500.
3K.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and what we do with it.
There's some
and
devices out there
Wait
that are-
till you see what we're about to do with
You
it.
can use it for all kinds of stuff, right? It's not just
Yeah, it's
you
so
yeah.
versatile.
You
You
don't
can
have it
do
just for
reverse
eccentric
band.
loading, you can do bands, you can do
Reverse band?
reverse band.
So
we use
as
it
it
for
gets
floats.
longer, the load gets lighter.
Let's talk a little bit about like what the treadmill actually does, because the treadmill, so the treadmill, you can self-propel the treadmill as well, but then the treadmill has different resistance.
Yeah,
so,
so in
you
the
can push it
non-motorized-
like a sled where
Yeah.
you're self-propelling it.
Yeah, we call it Omega mode. It's the non-motorized.
Omega and Alpha.
Yeah, so Omega is non-motorized, and there's varying levels of resistance on the belt that you can set depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Along with the incline, you can vary the incline to incorporate gravity,
Goes all the way up to 40.
40%
Right,
incline.
The
And we
speed
do
goes to 31, right? Speed.
speed 31 miles per hour. These are just built to be, I'll say, excessive.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to exceed your limit of your capability.
Right.
We standardize 20% incline for our non-motorized, so we track all of that. The other thing with the software is now all of the metrics are stored for each athlete in the cloud, in
That's
their
cool.
account, their profile that they're able to access. Facility managers are able to access.
Yeah. That goes talk
Again,
about the
creating opportunity for feedback loop and
Recruitment.
goals.
Now the treadmill, it also goes like backwards or something, right? Like I know you can like walk backwards on
Yeah,
it.
it has a retro. The belt will go the opposite direction. We've limited that to 5 miles per hour.
What's that for?
You know, we've had people say, "Oh, it'd be cool if we could go backwards at a decline."
But
Right.
so
Have you guys messed with
this
that,
is-
or is that not anything?
Or even incline.
This
Like,
is the only thing
we
that
don't
I
do
like
anything with it.
This is the only thing I like it for, right? It goes back to getting somebody in a retro type situation where they actually they turn around, right? And they have to go backwards on the treadmill. People, for some reason, even high level athletes are like, what the fuck is going on? I'm going
That's what-
backwards. And the belt's moving
At an
right.
incline.
At an incline, right? And they're
It's-
like, what
it's
am I?
bizarre.
I
We've
mean,
tried
dude,
it.
it's just like, what are we doing, right? I mean, you're a high level athlete, and when you make somebody go backwards and you get them out of their quote unquote comfort zone, that's the cool thing about going retro. And there's a lot of studies about retro.
You know
but
what's
anyway,
funny?
it goes back to the belt moving backwards, right? I'm like, the only reason I like the reverse belt is an athlete can get on there, hold the bar, and as the belt's going the opposite direction, they can hold on the bar and get kind of the patterning of going backwards,
I see.
right? Other than that, I mean, it's like what somebody goes, well, we want the treadmill to be able to decline and go downhill. I'm like,
You know,
that makes
I was going to say, it's
zero
funny.
sense.
I think that was Weck at one of the outside the boxes. I have the video. He jumps on. I'm standing there. Oh, check this out. We've got the capability. Somebody talked about wanting to go backwards at an incline, and he's like, oh, let me check that. Oh, this is genius. Oh, and we haven't used it since. But it does have the ability. If anyone wants to explore, listen, this is all about evolution.
I used to do high-speed retro runs. I mean, some kids were getting to...
On a flat to decline.
On a flat, right. And they actually had the harness system. At that point, it was, I'd changed the harness system to where it was all it was a safety spotting mechanism.
Yeah.
But there was a point where, and was it bad or was it good? I never had anything bad happen, right? But I did have some kids going 18, 19 miles per hour backwards.
So the applicability, and if you see in some of the videos, we have a full carbon fiber harness system. So the relevance of the carbon fiber is more, very little of what we do in the overspeed world do we need a harness. There are people that want the harness for perceived levels of safety. But the real applicability is in PT and ACL rehabilitation. Yeah. So there we have the ability to off-weight the athlete. There is probably a lot of relevance to doing something
60,
related to
70% of their
retro
body weight off.
inclines. But yeah, so once they're cleared to be able to move, they get on, they can be off-weighted. We have protocols being developed specifically for ACL rehab return to play. We want to get athletes back in action as fast as possible. The other thing that's really interesting is concussion protocol.
It's different beast.
Having objective measurements of what an athlete's, you get back into the, red, yellow, green. If you have parameters that is their baseline prior to injury, you have to meet that threshold to be cleared post-injury. And there are some things happening related to, say, concussion and return to play protocol that's very objective. You can't fake it. And it's not somebody feels like you might be able to return to play.
What was one of the last things you had in SEMA and some of the other guys do where they were self-propelling? Yeah,
That's
and then
the Omega.
And
That's
then
the
you
Omega
finished with the flow stuff. You can just talk about that a little bit and what that was doing, because you were trying to reach those peak forces.
Pure acceleration
That's all
and
it
power.
is. Yeah. So the cool thing about it is, a long time ago, goes back, right? Is I always knew non-motorized was something that we needed to do just for a pure acceleration standpoint. Well, in the old systems and the old treads that we used to work with, was to get it to be able to move with efficiency and to be able to get that belt rolling, is we had to take it all the way up to 40% incline, right, to get the belt going. With this system is so smooth now. When they do a non-motorized accelerated, I call them hamster runs. We just call them hamster runs, right? Like a hamster on a wheel. But the cool thing about it now, through the technologies, now we're able to measure time to peak speed, and those two combined gives you a number called acceleration. And when you can measure acceleration and plot it and put it in the cloud, it's a pretty cool thing.
In terms of the optimal movement, you'll see a lot of athletes, they try to go too fast, right? They're focused on frequency and not on power and length. And
remember I was showing you guys getting on? They'll get on
between the strides.
Long, hard strides, right?
Yeah.
Use that
Longer
extension,
ground
use the
contact.
glutes, use the hamstrings to max them out, right? To be able to push yourself and propel yourself forward, right? Most athletes can't do that.
And this is another way with that rear bar attachment, connected to the Vultra 2, we
do a lot of acceleration.
Resist the athlete, and they have full access to their upper half, so their arms. Most of the times you'll see, like on a sled push, they're holding the front bar, so it's isolated. So we can do that now fully.
So with floats,
free.
Floats is, so remember it goes back to me, right? A lot of this is experimentation, right? So floats came by complete accident. So I was up in Alaska, right? I had a kid run on the treadmill, and he I was like, all right, off, right? Well, he didn't get off the treadmill, right? So I step off the treadmill, and he starts literally floating back, right? The treadmill's pushing him off, and he's almost, I don't even know how to explain it, right? He was panicking, right? And as he felt it moving back, he got back towards the back of the treadmill, and he accelerated up the belt and stepped off, and I was like,
Reactive.
reactive, right? I'm like, dude, I said, that's pretty cool. I said, can you do that again? It was a little bit higher level athlete, right? He just got scared, right? Because he was like kind of stopped running, but it was forcing him back, and he realized he was being forced back. And he reacted, he leaned and accelerated up the tread and then stepped off. He's like, holy shit, man. I'm like, wait, do that again, right? I said, I'm going to start on the backside, right? I said, I want you to come all the way back, and I want you to, right? I'll hit you, and I want you to lean and accelerate and see what happens. That's what happened with floats. It's a beautiful acceleration drill.
And one of the common flaws you'll see if somebody's trying to do it that has no idea what they're doing with the performance treadmill is they'll have the belt going too fast. So the athlete is just trying to keep up with the belt on the way back, and then they're shoving them up the belt. This is a drift and fire.
Yeah, what did you have it at, like 6 or 7 miles an hour? Or
20. I usually keep it about 20% to 22%, and depending on the athlete, 6 to 8 miles per hour. Higher level athlete. Thing is we there's two ways we do it. We go to max, meaning you're going to get up there and you're going to accelerate as many times over and over as you can until you can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right. There's another one we call power floats, where I just want you to react to my cue, right? The cue on the backside and the cue of my voice. I want you to react. Remember I told you, I want you to react, okay? React to me, okay? Don't anticipate, react. Because sport is, you have to react to sound and movement, right?
Yeah.
You can anticipate to an extent, right? But when you're accelerating, you see that hole, you have to react to it and then go.
Yeah, we want full explosion, nothing in the tank. That's the difference. If you know you only have to do 5, you're going to go all out because you can hit that 5.
There's so many, things that you guys didn't see today that we do. I mean, how do you how do you manipulate that stretch reflex and the central nervous system, all that?
We scratch the surface,
dude. Holds, you can do hold bounds, you can do shuffles, you can go sideways, you can go backwards, right? You can do floats. You can do what we call, there's one I call like elevators, right? If you want to like really tax them, they start at a low incline, and it's cool. You can just say go at 5 miles an hour or at 6 miles an hour, and you just hit that button and just let that treadmill slowly creep up. As that incline starts going up, right? 5 miles an hour flat is pretty easy, right? Then as that incline starts going up, what do they have to do? They're like, that oh shit mode hits, right? And they're like, oh man, I have to kind of get on my horse to get up that hill. There's so many ways and things we can do that you just can't do on the ground.
Question for you. Maybe, we'll have to get some of those things to test our speed on a given day so we know like what to set on the tread. But I'm curious, like if I just want to come in and train on the treadmill, but I haven't tested my speed, I don't know how fast I am on the day, how should I approach it? Should I, you know what I mean? Like, should I approach it if I'm feeling good, then just go at this, the top speed I had last time or this past time? Like,
Yeah, it's an interesting question. This is also why our standard flow is we test every day.
Yeah, of course. So we should figure out a way to test.
You're asking if we don't have that. Answer it.
But let me say something before you handle there's always what do we do if we don't have this? Let's assume we have cool shit that we get to do stuff with.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's something you need to do. Recently, the laser timers are an essential part of what we do.
Okay.
And there's a brand called Brower Timing Systems. Now, these guys, I've had a lot of conversations with them. The two sons recently acquired the business from the father. This has been around for 40 years. I think they're based out of Draper, Utah. I used to live in Draper, Utah, right? I was born in Utah. So I have roots, family in Utah. So to connect with these guys was just kind of cool. And the history of that product and the quality of that product. It was used to, I believe, time ski timing. Okay?
Downhill.
And it's evolved. So what we did, because I don't like the user experience of any of the existing timing gates from the user interface in the app. And I'm in the software world. If I don't like how it works, I'm going to do it myself.
That's it.
And so we built an app that controls the Brower timing gates. And that's what we use today to get all of your laser times. And that's something, I can show you. The interface was designed to work exactly the way we want. So very cost effective. And I'm talking about an incredible product if you use it the way it's designed.
Did you have it hooked up to like an iPad or something too today?
Yeah, that was my iPad with the app we developed.
Gotcha.
So that app talks to the timing device, which is a handheld device that talks to the gates. And it doesn't care where you set the gates up. I mean, it's an IR beam. There is no reflector. You don't have to worry about, is the sun shining? This thing is extremely resilient. It's extremely easy to
And we were
port
running
and
on
take
some
anywhere.
gravel. Yeah.
That's a cool.
But you saw, we flew with that. Like, I jumped on a plane with the entire system.
Nice.
And we set it up at your house in
in the
2
driveway.
minutes, and we're getting your
The
laser
numbers.
times.
But I think what you're asking, if you don't have that,
Yeah,
so you can
like,
go back to
I'm
the.
probably just gonna
it
buy
goes
that,
back.
but-
It goes back to the OG protocols, right? Once again, remember, okay, if you go in there, all right, make sure you set it at a speed that you're capable of doing the prescribed time at the prescribed incline. The biggest mistake everybody makes is, oh, okay, I'm going to go faster, right? Once again, if you're not able to do 12 miles an hour at 25% incline, don't try to do
And
that.
the protocols tell you
The
this.
protocols tell you exactly what to do.
Your 6 to 8 seconds, do it exactly what it says for the exact
And if-
number of sets for the exact time.
And if 10 miles an hour is too fast, lower it to 9 miles an hour.
Don't change the incline. Modify the speed.
That's it.
Yeah, and the way the treadmill is set up, it has a bunch of different programs on there. Yeah. You select a program, you try to select one that's appropriate for you. You know, are you in the beginning phases of this, or are you more
We say
advanced?
everybody starts level 0.
And you start on level 0, you start week 1.
There's very few kids that'll come into the facility and or they say they get on and you're like, okay, that kid he's different. Mm-hmm. Right? She's different. Okay, you know, maybe they can start on level 1.
Right.
Okay? But for the most part, everyone can start at level 0.
Yeah,
you guys were all at level 0 today,
Right.
right? Level 0, so imagine what it's going to take for you to get to level 3. Right?
Yeah, and if you start at level 0 and you're finding some of it to be easy, then maybe you could start to think about.
You can adapt. Right. You could go on to level 1 if you're capable, right?
It's
But
all
you can adapt the
adjustable,
speed.
too.
Yeah, you can adapt. And remember, incline, not speed. If the speed is too, say you do it like, oh shit, 10 miles an hour is just too slow.
Increase the incline.
Boom. As long as you maintain proper mechanics, don't increase the incline. Increase the speed. Follow the protocols. If I
Trust
say
the incline.
If I say
Modify the
15%
speed.
at this juncture in the protocol, stay at 15. If 9 miles an hour is just too slow, you can go up. If it's just too fast, go down. Adjust speed.
Question, and this is actually aside from the treadmill. I know this question could get super broad, but is there anything you see, because like obviously strength training is important, but is there anything you see coaches who strength train athletes that they're trying to get to be faster? Is there anything you see them doing that could be making the athletes slower without them realizing it?
Goes back to movement.
What are some concepts there?
To me, it's just movement, right? My thing is if they can't do, it doesn't matter if it's a squat, a deadlift, a clean, a sprint, a jump, whatever it may be. If the movement looks bad, it's bad. Don't put function on top of dysfunction. Okay? Do I think squats are good? Yeah, I think squats are good. Do I think cleans are good? This is we get into an argument all the time about this, right? Is I don't care what we do at our facility, right? We have to prep the athletes to be ready for college if that's what they want to do. Okay, and part of that is when they go to college, they're going to back squat, they're going to deadlift, they're going to power clean. Yeah. Our job is to make sure that those movements, when they go to that school, okay, is right. The biggest mistake most coaches make is if you're going to talk about speed on a treadmill, they go too fast. Right? They're trying to get them to go faster by using speed, right? Not the incline. If they're trying to get somebody stronger, they're dosing that squat, they're dosing the clean, they're dosing the deadlift with too much weight, and their form is really, really bad. You see it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. That's why I think velocity-based training is so much more effective. Okay? Is it's take that weight off the bar. Okay? And if you can't move this weight at this specific speed, take the weight off until you can move it at this specific speed or until your mechanics dictate that speed. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
The only thing I would add to that, not being an expert in any way, shape, or form, is understand the value of eccentric and redirection of force and rapid redirection of force. So the ability to absorb and redirect. And how do eccentrics and how do isometrics and tendon health and tendon resiliency contribute to the ability to be powerful and explosive?
And that's the
Everyone
kind of
gets
stuff
caught up in the concentric.
That's where, when we're talking outside the box, right, we can start talking about Cal Dietz. Okay, he's going to be there, right? Look up triphasic training. It's already, in his mind, it's probably already outdated, but to most people, it's like groundbreaking, like, holy shit, right? Schroeder system, okay? It's been around forever, right? People are just beginning to learn, like, my God, the eccentrics and the eccentric loading and the redirection of force is amazing, okay? Marinovich system, okay? You see all these people doing this crazy stuff, the Marinovich system, you're like, man, this guy's crazy, right? But it's effective.
You know, the other thing I would respond to that question with is we pay very little attention to what we think someone is doing wrong, and we extract everything that we think they might be doing right.
Yeah.
And we figure out how to apply that in combination to what we already know we believe to be the best for the athlete. At the end of the day, sports performance and resiliency in their health, right? So yeah, we just we try not to get caught up in what are people doing wrong, except for it's good to know what you don't want to do.
And last question, like this is an aside question on this, but what have you guys noticed with isometrics and how you apply it? Of course, you maybe apply it many different ways for athletes, but it's something that I don't really see a lot of people talk about or pay attention to.
Oh, we love isometrics.
We love isometrics. So it goes back to if
Proper application.
What is the
love
proper application? Okay.
Tendon.
If we don't know what that application is, we have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So as a kind of example is myself, my head trainer, and two of our other staff members, three of our other staff members are going through the quote unquote Schroeder system. Okay. Right. I've never done eccentrics to the extent that I'm doing eccentrics, right? Right, coming down slow or even just holding a specific position for a specific amount of time. And I can tell you now, I'm stronger than I've ever been.
So he's talking about Dylan Rita. He's our director of sports performance.
Yeah.
Phenomenal human being and amazing at what he does. And I tasked him with incorporating Schroeder principles. So he connected directly with Ryan Paul, who's going to be one of the speakers outside the box. Another amazing coach and human being. What I love is when someone is not protective and they're willing to share what they do and what they've learned.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, is this good for athletes? I want to share. We love to connect with those people, and it's the entire purpose of Outside the Box, which has and always will be free for everyone to attend.
Real quick question. Have you guys, first off, what do you guys use currently for isometrics? And have you ever heard of the ISOPHIT, the ISOPHIT? I don't know if you could pull it up, Ryan.
I've not heard of that.
So we don't use it. We have Sornex racks in the facility. So we'll do, combination of, what they call
Holds.
the overcoming.
Yeah.
Again, this is something where we would pull in Dylan and say, all right, let's go through the programming of which isometrics we use and why. But at the end of the day, we're trying to recruit muscle fiber, right? Motor unit recruitment. And we're also trying to build, like for me personally, I do a lot of isos because patellar tendinopathy, I have none when I'm doing deep lunge isos.
Yeah. So I want to show this to you.
So it's
Yeah, go ahead.
so the way we do that is we just get a bar in a rack.
You don't
Okay.
need a device like this.
Limit the range of motion of the bar,
Yeah.
and just pull as hard as you possibly can. Here's the thing about it too, right? It's a lot safer than doing full-blown concentric movements, right? Because you actually recruit more muscle fibers when you do the isometrics that way. Okay, even when you come down to slow, you like a down 5 count, right, and then pause and then explode back up.
Yeah.
Or one cool thing that we're really starting to work with, which Ryan Paul does, Dan Fichter does it, right? Is you go from how do they say it? They go from iso to plyo. So like that right there,
There's
right?
a little bit of contrast.
Okay, it's a contrast. So get in there, and I want you to get into that specific position right there. The bad thing is he's on his heel. Okay, stay off your heel. Get up on your toes.
That's what I like to do.
Okay, stay on the front foot of the. Okay, every time your heel hits, you lose stretch reflex. Okay, I'm not saying it's bad. You can train sometimes with your heel down as part of it,
But
right?
also
But
motor patterning.
motor
You're naturally
patterning,
gonna
running.
land in a
But you go back into
non-compromised position.
that position, pull as hard as you possibly can. Okay, 10 seconds. I mean hard, right? And you let go, and you're like, woo,
Yeah,
man.
so this is,
There it is.
one way we do. We also just got an attachment that they make now that bolts up to the rack, and you can take a rod and slide it through, and it just creates an immovable object.
So you go ISO hold right, ISO hold left, and then step out, and you
A
can
lot of unilateral.
you can do split jumps with it, or you can do broad jumps, or you can do a drop jump from a box to an explosive movement. So you go from ISO to plyo.
But we'll also do non-loaded, hold that deep
Yeah.
ISO position for extended period of time.
Yeah, like
You-
40, 45
And
seconds.
it identifies all of the longer, minute, 2 minutes, 3
Schroeder's
minutes.
going. Some of Schroeder's guy go 5 minutes. If you get into an ISO hold like
should
that,
feel
right
it.
there, just hold that position. Go head over foot, okay, and hold that position for 2 minutes. Get in. Make sure that the positioning is correct.
Yeah.
Get up on your front toe and you
You'll
hold that.
feel things transitioning throughout your
I know
body.
the go-to guys like that a lot.
Yeah. Oh,
they
yeah.
just cook you in those positions.
Yeah.
And you guys do some of that stuff too, where you're.
But we'll also do it in a
pushing
really
your,
deep lunge.
pushing your weight back, right, and having your hips back and trying to lean forward.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
trying to do a lot of things where you're mimicking that.
So like
forward.
we were talking about that, we use the Viking bar. Another one that we use is the linebacker bar, right? So instead of doing
Good
a
forward intent,
forward
loaded,
intent, and another
powerful,
one,
explosive movement.
huge shout out, and everybody should look this up, is Landmine University.
Oh, yeah.
With Alex
We've
Canellis.
had him on the show.
Have you guys had him on the show? Dude.
I think the first outside the box we did was his cert.
Yeah.
First
so
or
we usually
second.
do a cert as well, and so we all got certified in that. So what his concept was, and I think you guys know it is, right, is teaching kids to do an actual straight barbell clean, hang clean, power clean, whatever you want to do, is so difficult to do. So he just modified it and turned it into landmine.
Rotational.
Dude, and then it gets into the, there it is. It gets into the WEC method, right? Head over foot, right? You get that spiral engine, okay? And you snap it, right? It's beautiful. So that's what we'll do. So that's one key thing to do too. We'll do the ISO hold right, ISO hold left, go to the landmine, and I want you to do, 3 jerks right, 3 jerks left.
Yeah.
Right, beautiful.
You know what this highlights right here is, I sent Weck a text the other day and I said, I think there's a Z factor here, and it's a line through the shoulders and the hips and then across the sling from opposite hip to opposite shoulder, and the torsion and the torque around that axis that we really need to explore. It's not just head over foot. There's a rotation around a torsional axis of the rubber band that connects the hip to opposite shoulder.
Goes into slings.
Yeah.
Slings. are
And he
different
says,
beast.
"Oh wow, that sounds great for somebody that has Z as part of their marketing."
Awesome having you guys here. Where can people find you, and where can they find out more about the upcoming seminar that you have?
Yeah, at Ubrzati.official, Instagram, and at Z-Treadz. Outside the box, April 24th and 25th. It's free. Download the Ubrzati app.
Speakers are,
and get your ticket. We're limiting it to 100.
yeah, it's a limit. It's a small. We want to keep it that way because our big thing is we're big relationship
And it's
guys.
almost at limit. So
Yeah. We're at, I think, 70 right now. So, yeah, I mean, Gary, you got Dan Fichter, Cal Dietz, Tony Holler, Brian Kula, Ryan Paul, Les Spellman. Who am I missing?
Cody Hughes.
Cody Hughes.
David Weck, right?
David Weck.
Weck is a staple.
David Weck's a staple. He's just awesome to listen to. He's outside the universe.
He
but
would be
he's-
there
he's-
without fail, even if he wasn't presenting.
This is the last question I want to actually ask you guys. I know you're about to close out, Mark, but I don't know if you guys have messed with rope flow at all or what you think about it. But
Absolutely.
What people
Absolutely.
think
Love it.
about it
Love
from a
it.
movement perspective.
It's a movement.
for
It
athletes.
goes to that spiral engine, head over foot. I mean, there's so much application to it. You stay up on the front part of the foot. It's plyometric.
I would say fluidity.
Yeah, fluid as well.
Fluidity, and if you want to talk about
Rotational movement. It's everything.
motor patterning,
Yes.
and neuroplasticity, these concepts that we're talking about, rope flow is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's and talk about coordination and coordination patterning, dude. That's amazing. When you see somebody like yourself doing it effectively, dude, you're like, man, that's a beautiful thing to watch.
And at the end of the day, the physics principle, objects in motion stay in motion. So fellas, let's stay in motion.
Yeah.
All right.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.